All right, y'all, man. It's Friday. The game is only a couple of days away. That's exciting. The 49ers take on the Carolina Panthers, but there's still things to talk about with the 49ers. And let me check my mic real quick before I really get to talking. Okay, I'm good. There's still things to talk about with the 49ers as it pertains to this matchup and kind of where they are. I got a couple guys coming on with me today to discuss the ins and outs. Jimmy Ward, his situation, the 49ers offense, where's it heading? What can we be optimistic about? And a certain person on TV said he still thinks the 49ers are the best team in the NFC. We like to hear that, and we're going to talk about all that and more right now on the San Francisco 49ers Morning Show. Let's go.
Intercepted. It is picked off by Eric Crocker. Over midfield, he'll run it all the way into the end zone. Touchdown.
Crop Talk TV podcast. Peace.
Welcome to another episode of the San Francisco 49ers Morning Show. I'm your host, former NFL and AFL defensive back, Eric Crocker. And got another day, man. Talk about some 49er football. Man, that's 5 days this week. Let's go. Real quick before we jump into that, there's a couple of things. One, how the hell did the 49ers lose to the Denver Broncos? Oh, my God. Was that not one of the worst games you've ever seen last night? Thursday evening, the Denver Broncos and the Indianapolis Colts played, and it was bad. The only good that came out of it, and I'm gonna put it up on my screen right now, just so y'all can feel this a little bit more. Hold on. Let me share my screen. Is it right here? And oh yeah, what is that? That's Underdog Fantasy right now. Listen, man, I've been trying to tell y'all about Underdog Fantasy. How do I make this bigger? Pause. There we go. Look at that, came up a little light, $490 last night on a few different plays, you feel me? Second half bet. They got the new second half thing that you can do, as you can see here. Got my second half plays. Russell Wilson over 100. Cortland Sutton over 2 receptions. Deion Jackson over 13. I mean, dude, it was easy money. I put $20 down, and I got $400. Let's go. And then that wasn't the only one. Came up on this one. 3 picks for $60. Come on, man. Underdog Fantasy. Download the app or go to underdogfantasy.com and use the promo code Crocky and go make you some money. I mean, $500 last night. Easy. I made $100 off the 49ers the other night. Easy money. All right, so Underdog Fantasy, promo code Crocky. I'm going to put out some videos too on kind of what we got going on over there at Underdog. All right, but I'm gonna stop sharing the screen. I actually didn't come on to talk about that. I actually want to talk about, did y'all see Jordan Poole get knocked out? And we had a big debate about this I went on Spaces, because first of all, I talked about it on Twitter, then went on Spaces. And here's my thing. One, there's a couple different things here, because there's like different codes. There's like street code, there's a professionalism code, all that stuff. But the one thing that I noticed with professional athletes being up there, they are just like everybody else. They handle situations like everybody else. So, understanding that, you got to be ready for everything. You got to be ready. And if you're playing basketball, street ball, whatever, and you're talking that trash and somebody might handle it where, you see it kind of getting out of hand and they just bomb on you, well, you should have felt that coming. You should have felt this person's energy and try to figure out, if you don't want that smoke, a different way to kind of de-escalate the situation. And whatever Jordan Poole was doing or saying or whatever, it got to the point where you got to look at Draymond Green and say, he's tripping right now. Let me chill out. Let me shut up. And Jordan Poole never shut up. He kept talking and did a little shove, and then boom, got bombed on. Like, I've seen so many different fights during practice and training camps and all these different things that is not something that surprised me. I mean, the level of which he dogged him, right? I mean, and he was just like sleep, right? And then he like caught him before he hit the ground. It was bad. But Draymond. Draymond be tripping. And Jordan Poole, from what Draymond said in the past, Jordan Poole is somebody, he talks a lot of trash. He got under a lot of veteran skin. So if we know that, like, at some point you got to shut up. And Jordan Poole never shut up. Got to shut up. If you're not going to handle, if you are not going to match the energy that Draymond Green is bringing, and you see he's irritated, you see that, just shut up, and it'll all go away. And he never shut up, kept talking. And I kind of compared it to my son. my son, we got kids, right? Sometimes they might say a little thing, and it's like, shut up. And your kid keep talking, shut the fuck up. What did I just say? And then your kid keep talking, and it's like, all right. See, I tried to be cool about it. I tried to tell you to shut up, and you kept going. I think that's what this situation was. You got to know to shut up. If you're not going to match that energy. Now, if you're going to match that energy, say whatever you want. But you got to be ready when, you know what I'm saying? Right. And I might act like I'm the toughest guy in the world, but I do know I can feel somebody's energy. My guy Big Tone said, you got it wrong, bro. It's okay. Hey, listen, I might have it wrong where you're from, but I'm telling you where I'm from and what I've seen. If you don't want to match somebody's energy, shut the fuck up. Just shut up. And then it won't. If I don't want to match, if I see this dude's tripping and I don't really want those, shut up. But the more you keep talking and you keep, and the person, you feel that energy, then, hey, man, hey, it is what it is. So it's unfortunate for Poole and Draymond Green. I mean, it's unfortunate for the team in general, all right? But anyways, we didn't really come on here to talk about all that. We came on here to talk about the 49ers. Got some film we're going to pull up. So you already know we got Greg Pinelli coming on to break down a couple of plays that were kind of like, a little iffy or questionable or whatever. But aside from that, man, I got a special guest today, and he goes by the name of Vish Kamora. Vish, what's up, man? Good morning.
Good morning, Croc. Thank you for having me. It's fun to be on. It's been a long time since we've done this together, so I'm excited to come on with you. I'm glad that we could work this out in the morning.
Yeah, man. I mean, you're the busy man. I just kind of just do some random stuff, But
Croc, I don't know about that. I mean, what do you got? A gym coming out? You got a podcast? You got the YouTube channel? What else? You train athletes? I mean, I don't know if I would say I'm the busy one there.
Well, I mean, you got real world stuff going on and schooling and all that stuff. And hey, real quick, Vish showed me a good time from what I remember out in Chicago. I went to Chicago, met Vish. That was our first time meeting, huh?
Yeah, that was. You were bigger in person than I expected. I'll say that. Like, I mean, I expected you to be a big guy because you're an former NFL player, but like, Croc, I can see why you post those workout videos. Like,
well, I'm not big. I mean, 6'2", 200 pounds. So like that's kind of like.
Are you bigger than when you played?
To be honest, no. I am shaped a little different. Like when I played, I was 6'2", around 200 pounds, but like 8% body fat. You know what I'm saying? So I wasn't as soft. Now again, I'm not like fat, and I've lost weight, and I work out and stuff. But I don't. I weigh. I'm the same height and weight, but it looks different. It looks a little different.
Okay. Yeah. So yeah, that was one thing that I noticed. I mean, definitely not as. I mean, meeting Jason Aponte in person, I think that's the one that everybody's like, "Yo, Jason's like huge. Like he's so tall. Like I don't think anybody expected him." Because you see him in this like setting where we're seeing like half of each other on this camera, so it's always exciting to see people for the first time because like you create this impression in your head of what they look like, and that's sometimes reality, sometimes it isn't.
Right, yeah. So now you were cool, man. It was good. You know who was bigger than I thought?
Who?
Bonta Hill. That's a big dude.
Yeah, he's like 6'4".
Yeah, he was like 6'4", 6'5". I mean, he was towering over me. That was a tall dude.
Yeah, for sure. And then I thought it was funny that you were talking about this Jordan Poole, Draymond Green thing, and you were bringing up like you got kids and you got to tell your kids to shut up. Like, oh man, I've been told to shut up so many times by my parents.
It's just shut up. And okay, then it'll go away. But when you just keep talking and you kind of keep provoking the situation. I'm not saying Poole is wrong or right. I'm not saying Draymond Green is wrong or right. But what I am saying is just shut up. And Poole, you see him still talking, saying things under his word. Now again, his mannerisms, it wasn't that of someone who was being aggressive or anything like that. Like I didn't get that vibe. But you see what Draymond Green is on. So shut up. And when he walks up on you, you walked up on him. And he kind of put his chest on him, and at that time, now you are invading my personal space, and he does this 2-hand shove. Now the shove was just, bro, get away from me. But when you do it, understanding the energy that he's on, you gotta be ready. Unless you're just gonna let him do that and then tell someone, hey man, somebody come get this guy, man. Like, he's tripping right now. And then, you know what I'm saying? Like, there are different ways to go about it. And I think just me being in those situations before, seeing it, understanding it, I think Jordan Love should have just shut the fuck up. And it wouldn't have. Now, maybe you look like a punk, you know, but it doesn't escalate to the situation that it did, which ended up with him. I mean, I think he went to sleep. You think
he got slapped? He didn't hit him that hard, it looked like.
Oh, no, he hit him hard. And that's the part where it's like, I think he hates him because he hit him hard.
Yeah, I mean, someone said that I'm not calling Croc fat. He's actually kind of jacked. That's what I was saying. Like, he's yoked. But also, like, in regards to that, I don't know if you heard what Shannon Sharp said this morning. He said, like, Poole clearly wasn't about that energy because, like, he was shocked when Draymond walked up on him. And he kind of gave him that, like, soft two-handed shove. So, like you said, if you're not about the energy, then don't keep talking. Because Draymond is about it.
And because Draymond, he's over there, he's kind of pacing back and forth, right? And he's kind of like, and they're talking, they're going back and forth. But Poole is doing something to where, like, what made Draymond walk over? And at that point, again, just shut up. And he would have never walked up. Now he does. And I'm not saying, he should have just knocked him out. But I'm saying you see the energy that he's on. Like, you see what Draymond is on. So at that point, don't keep talking. Don't shove him with two hands. Not saying it was a malicious shove, but don't shove him. Don't just, if you're not going to get ready to fight, which he wasn't. He wasn't ready to fight.
Right. He didn't want that. I mean, yeah. It's funny to me. I think the reaction to it, I guess, is just like, it's all the timing with all of this. I remember when Bobby Portis broke Nikola Mirotic's jaw in Chicago in practice. And it was like a big story. It was a national storyline. I mean, Bobby Portis straight cleaned him up. Like, that was kind of the end of Nikola Mirotic's NBA career. He went to the Pelicans for a little bit, all of that, but that was kind of it. And it's just like, we've seen stories like this leading up, I feel like, in different situations. And this one definitely, I guess, is probably the biggest reaction I've seen.
Well, because you see the video.
Yeah.
I mean, you see the video. I see somebody say, so Croc, if you punch a coworker, we're supposed to be talking about the 49ers. Now we're talking about Draymond Green and the basketball stuff. But Croc, if you punch a coworker, what would that look like in the work environment? I'll say this. I don't know about what work environment you work in, but playing sports, I have been in fights in practice. Like, it's happened. Yeah. Me and my teammates have gone after it. It gets a little heated. It could be one-on-ones. He could do something I ain't like. Then he did. Then the next rep, we just go at it like we were ready to go. So, again, I don't know about your work environment, but the me playing college, I've gotten in several fights in practice. Professionally, I got in a couple of fights. Like, it just happened. So, I can't speak for your work environment.
Yeah, and I think that's the key, right? Like, that's the inherent thing of this conversation. Not every work environment is the same. Like, I go into work and I take all my meetings over Teams. Like, everything is done virtually. I'm not meeting like any person really face to face. I'm just sitting in a cubicle and doing my work. There's not really a release of adrenaline from me or any sort of competitive juice rolling in me as I'm doing my work. That you cannot say that I'm now going to go and have any energy to get clocked in my work environment or to clock someone. Like,
right.
You can't compare.
And if you got a dude that's talking crazy and you're talking crazy back, then just know there's a chance that it might escalate to that even in a normal work environment. We got Forgotten Athlete podcast here, and he says, yeah, Eric, but that wasn't a fight. Draymond sucker punch. That wasn't a sucker punch.
No, he walked up straight up and clocked him.
I actually thought that Draymond was going to sucker punch him. When I first saw it and I saw what somebody said, I'm like, damn, he finna sneak him, right?
No, he looked
and that's
eye to
like,
eye.
if you like catch somebody from the side, like, that's a sucker punch. If you walk up to somebody, put your chest on them, and they shove you to just get away from me, but they put their hands on you, and then you punch them, that's not a sucker punch. Like, we've been building up to this. Like, this is something that you could feel, right? So that's not quite a sucker punch. That's not
it
a
wasn't
sucker
a fight,
punch.
really. It wasn't a fight, really.
It wasn't a
Poole didn't
fight.
fight back because Poole
Right.
didn't fight
It wasn't
back.
a fight. I mean, it was, and then this is the last time. Hey guys, this is the last time I'm going to address this so we can get to football. Like Avatar Singh says, all right, like let's get to the football talk. But if you did this outside, he would have got popped. But they're not outside. But listen, even if you're outside, and this is the last thing I'll say, then we're going to get to 49er talk. All right. Let's say you're outside. Even then, you have to understand what ramifications can happen, no matter what, no matter where you are. And again, maybe some people think of it different. I don't know. I can only speak on me, my experiences, where I'm from, things I've gotten into, how it goes down. And so I can't speak on other people's, like where you work or anything like that. Just me being in the sports world and other situations. 5 years ago, I beat up my sister's baby daddy. He put hands on my sister, and I told him, you got to see me, period. Point blank, period. Serious, period. You got to see me. And eventually, we ran into each other, and I handled it. Now, with me handling that situation the way that I did, I understood that there could be something that comes from that. So I ain't really dog him as much as I could have dogged him, because I'm like, damn, I don't want this dude to shoot me or somebody else to shoot me or want to retaliate. You know what I'm saying? And clearly Draymond Green's not worried about that. But I understood, like, in the back of my head, like, I can get shot for this. You know what I'm saying? And, like, those are things that you just know. So, like, when you get in a situation, whatever, you know, like, yeah, you could get popped. But clearly he wasn't in that getting popped environment. I was, you know what I'm saying? But those are things, you know, if he's outdoors, then, yeah, he's more aware of that. So that's just me, you know, talking about, you know. But anyways, enough of this. You gotta feel people's energy. You gotta feel people's energy. I saw Draymond's energy. If Jordan Poole wasn't gonna match that or wasn't gonna be prepared to, shut the fuck up. And Jordan Poole, it would just shut up. Clearly, Draymond's irritated. We kind of know how he gets, whatever. He's irritated. I'm not giving Draymond a pass. The Warriors are gonna deal with it. The Warriors are 100% gonna deal with it. I'm just saying, you gotta know people's energy. I don't feel bad for Jordan Poole. I think that's what I'm saying. I don't feel bad. All right, here we go. We got Greg. Greg's backstage. You gonna wait about 15 minutes, Greg? 15 minutes? Got 15 minutes before you come on. All right, but we got Vish on. And let's finally get to football. Let's finally get to some football here. Shout out to everybody in the chat right now. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. But I wanted to start off with, and we got Jimmy Ward here. He's returning. And real quick, I just want to get your thoughts on it because I'm hearing a lot of different things from should he come back? Should he start? Well, no, he shouldn't start. The 49ers safeties are really good. They got Gibson. He's graded very highly. Talanoa Hufanga, he's one of the most highest graded safety, if not the highest graded safety in the league. He's making plays, right? Like, so you have safeties that are doing a terrific job, taking the ball away, doing all these special things right now. The 49ers defense is it's just firing on all cylinders. What do you do with Jimmy Ward?
You bring him straight back and you give him his role back. I don't think that, first of all, I think there is room for a 3-safety lineup in this defense. They did it last year, and they kind of have the personnel to do it. Like, it fits the role, right? Gibson takes that tart role where you can kind of play him as a half-field safety. He can play quarters, but you can also roll him into the post, and you know he's going to be steady and he's not going to get beat over the top. Like, you know that. And Gibson has played really, really well, so I don't see why you'd have to, remove him from the lineup. But he's not as good a player as Jimmy Ward. That there's no doubt about that. Jimmy Ward, to me, is still the best cover guy in man coverage on this team. Still, even with Mooney Ward as good as he is, and Emmanuel Mosley's playing really well, I still think Jimmy Ward is that guy. I think that putting him on the line of scrimmage on third downs. Obviously, the Niners have a lot of disguise. They're a team that's very good at disguising. DeMeco Ryans is good at it. But I think Ward helps more because you can put Ward over a wide receiver, a tight end, a running back, any kind of eligible, guy that's a passing threat. And Ward can cover any of them in man. So you don't know if it's man versus zone pre-snap if Ward's standing over him. And I think those kinds of things, along with Ward's tackling, his ability to tackle from depth, the angles he takes, all those things he does at such a high level. I don't really get the conversation. He's one of their best players. He's going to return to the starting lineup. I think
Right.
where it gets more interesting is that this Niners defense, it doesn't have 11 starting caliber players. There's like 15, 16 players that you could put on the field that are currently rostered on this defense in a combination of 11 players and have the number one defense in the NFL. So it's going to be interesting to me on how DeMeco Ryans rotates personnel more than whether, Jimmie Ward comes back. And then I think another interesting part of this conversation is Deshaun Gibson right now is on the active roster. The Niners never have kept 5 safeties in the history of Kyle Shanahan on their active roster. They will not cut George Odom or Tarvarius Moore because those are their 2 best players on special teams. So what happens when Ward comes back? Does Gibson go to the practice squad and then they elevate him 3 times the way they elevated Malik Turner? The last couple weeks, he's played a couple times this season. Does that happen? Maybe. Do they keep 5 safeties and maybe, cut a different guy to bring Ward back and activate Ward from IR? That's a question mark. But I do think if all 3 safeties are in the roster, they showed that 3 safety sets. They did it a lot on third down last year with Hufanga, Tart, and Ward. And I would expect them to do similar things. Because Hufanga really, when they go to their dime defense, he kind of acts like a hybrid linebacker safety, right? He drops down, and when they play any type of 3-deep coverage, he's the middle hook player next to Fred Warner. So he replaces whatever middle linebacker or weak side linebacker would be playing next to Warner in that situation. And then, or sometimes he's the weak hook player if they play like 3 buzz, but they do that like out of, base personnel where they have 2 safeties on the field. So I think that it just adds to the versatility and the capability of the things they can do. Not to mention is how good Hufanga is in the run game. Honestly, they could play 3 safeties on obvious rundowns and get away with it because Hufanga he plays the run better than some linebackers.
And that's what I've been seeing too. I mean, this is a guy who sometimes I feel like, man, are there 2 number 29s? Because you see him on the back end and you see him around the line of scrimmage. He's making tackles here. He's making tackles there. I do see my guy Hunt right here in the chat. He says, cut Marlon Mack. The 49ers do have some backs that maybe they just have them on the roster for numbers or whatever.
But the way they keep getting hurt, how can you cut them?
I know. But maybe he's somebody that you put on the practice squad. Or
Possibly,
Tevin Coleman,
yes.
somebody else as opposed to Gibson, who is one of the highest graded safeties in the league right now. I do have a super chat here, and it says, if they don't win the division, is this season a disappointment? Also, with the Panthers team running 3 safeties, would he perfect fit to see it?
First, we don't know if Ward is healthy. I think he's saying if the Panthers, against this Panthers team, it would be perfect to see the 3 safeties. We've seen it already. They did it last year, and we don't know if Ward's healthy enough to play, but...
Right now, so Jimmie Ward, I think with me, and I don't know, do you think some people kind of prioritize interceptions over being good on a down and down basis? Because I think that's what's going on here, right? Where you see whether it's Hufanga, come on now, he's playing lights out. But I'm just saying, just in general, we see him making plays, and it's like, man, like he's better than Jimmie Ward. Or Gibson, he has an interception, he's better than Jimmie Ward because he has the interception as opposed to what Jimmie Ward does on a consistent basis, on a play in and play out basis, and what he allows you to do as a defensive coordinator because of his versatility. So where do you stand with guys are just making plays and they're always seeming to be around the ball, and guys that just really do their job at a high level?
So first of all, that conversation pisses me off because I think people play both sides on where it's convenient to their argument, right? People will play this side with Jimmie Ward, but then Niners fans will say, Trayvon Diggs, playmaker. The guy had 11 freaking interceptions last year, and people were ready to call him trash and the worst corner in the NFL, and he doesn't do his job, and he doesn't do this. But 11 interceptions, 11, like double-digit interceptions in an NFL season. That means he's having almost an interception every game, which is unheard of. So, I think that this conversation is always a matter of convenience. Personally, I think that a guy who is assignment sound first is better for your defense because I think limiting, as much as turnovers make an impact on the game, I think limiting explosives does too. So you have to, I think ideally you would want to have a guy who's balanced like Hufanga has been over the first 4 weeks of the season. He knows when to trust his instincts, trust his eyes, and take a risk like he did on that screen against Cooper Kupp. But he also knows how to do his job and stay assignment sound first. And then he knows how to maybe take that risk while doing his job, which, I mean, is high praise, really, because the master of that was Ed Reed, right? And I don't want to put Hufanga anywhere near that, but I'm just saying that that's an ability he's shown over the first 4 weeks. But really, I think that Ward's playmaking also can be sometimes an issue just of usage, right? If you want to play man coverage on third down, which is the obvious pass down, but you put Ward over a tight end and the tight end doesn't get off the line of scrimmage, then how is Jimmie Ward going to be able to make a play on the ball? Because the ball's not going to come to the tight end. So I think that that's where the conversation trends with Ward. But I just think he does too many things well to ever say that you don't want him to be a bigger part of the defense. The conversation, I think, where Ward goes, and I talked about this on my YouTube channel earlier this week. Croc, here's the bigger question. The Niners have to re-sign Emmanuel Mosley, Samson Ebukam, and Jimmie Ward this offseason. 3 players who Jimmie Ward in years past has been one of the best players on this defense. Emmanuel Mosley has become one of the best players on this defense. And Ebukam, the last 8-9 weeks, going back to last year, has been trending towards being one of the best players on this defense. And, well, there's a lot of best players on this defense because there's a lot of really good players. Do you think Jimmie Ward's 32? He does have an injury history. What do you think happens long-term with Jimmie Ward, that contract situation? I think Ward is still a good enough player that he's got one more payday in him too.
I mean, Jimmie Ward, I don't think it can be disputed, what his impact is to this team. And that's what I try to get people to understand. I don't care if he doesn't have the interception numbers that people, want to see or whatever the case is. This dude's a baller, regardless of how you look at it. And what he does, it just offers you to do more. All right, offers you to do more. So shout out to Jimmie Ward. I'm excited to see him back to whatever capacity.
Right.
He even kind of made a joke about, man, I don't think they need me, right? So I think they do need him. We'll see how much. All right, we'll see how much. The other thing that I want to talk to you about was the 49ers offense. And I've asked questions because, so I remember last year around this time, we weren't this far in. 49ers started off 2-0. And Peacock and I were like, yeah, 49ers 2-0, but something looks weird. Something looks odd. I think the expectations of this team are very high, but that's not exactly what I'm seeing on the field. And I just had questions or I don't want to say doubts. I don't want to use that word, but just where they were at the time when they started off 2-0. And people were like, oh, man, they won. Why are you complaining? You need to stop complaining. They effing won. Whatever, right? People getting their feelings about that. But right now, the 49ers are 2-2, and they just came off a huge win, and that is awesome. Love beating the Rams. I was excited. I was turned up, all that good stuff. But I have questions about the offense, and maybe it's as simple as Jimmy Garoppolo needs to find his footing, and once he does, he'll be scoring a bunch of points offensively, and he won't miss some of the throws, etc. But I guess my biggest question is with Kyle Shanahan. And I thought it was really weird that you have George Kittle, Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, Kyle Juszczyk, all these weapons all over the place. The offensive line is playing well enough. They're kind of middle of the pack. They're playing well enough, right? And you're the offensive guru, but you lean on your defense to win you games. And I just always thought, I think it would be better to have, I got this defense that can win games, but offensively, we're going to score 40 points a game. And obviously, he would like to do that, but I don't think he calls, the way he calls the games, it doesn't seem like it. Maybe it's the quarterback missing throws, but what are some of your thoughts on that? And then looking at other teams like the Lions with a first-year offensive coordinator, Ben Johnson, and Jared Goff, and they're scoring the highest points. Is it as simple as, and I know I'm asking a bunch of questions here, my bad, but some of the people are like, well, their defense is bad, so they have to score points. So it's like, are you saying that the 49ers are choosing not to score a lot of points? All right. But I know I said a whole lot. Hopefully you can unscramble
I
that.
did get a hold of it, though, so I'm ready to go for it. So the first part, I wanted to touch the last part of your question, and that is in regards to Shanahan and his willingness to win with his defense. I'm a little different from other people. That's something about Shanahan and McVay I've always admired. For them to be so young and to be as accomplished as they are, And as good offensive play callers as they are, for them to be content winning games with their defense, to me, shows maturity and understanding of the entire picture of managing a team as a head coach. More than anything, that understanding the best way to win for my team is for me to set my ego aside as a brilliant quote unquote play caller. And I got this great defense. We put this defense together. Let me win on the back of my defense. So for me personally, I think it shows a maturity and it shows an understanding of the entire picture of complementary football and how to win games in the NFL. Personally, I know I know that people want to see the explosive offense, especially in the modern NFL with the rules. And we see everybody and anybody putting up stats on any given season, really. I mean, how many different receivers have we seen have a one-off, like 1,200-yard season out of nowhere? Like last I remember was Allen Hurns. Terrell Pryor had one. There's like everybody's getting numbers off these days. And so
that's my thing. Whereas like you have all these other offenses with random people and they're putting up numbers and they're being explosive and they're scoring points. But the 49ers with the offensive guru, they're not getting that same type of production.
Right.
So I think that's where my, confusion is at.
I think, okay, so that brings me to the second part of this, right? I think right now he is coaching conservatively. I think he understands how good this defense is, and he does not want to. Basically, he's just trying not to give the game away with his offense. That's how he's coaching to me. He knows the quarterback he has. He knows the propensity of that said quarterback to turn the football over. Really, with this defense, the only thing that's going to make you lose, we saw it versus Denver. And then even in the monsoon, we saw it is really mental mistakes. And that's one of those things is turnovers. So to me, he's trying to avoid that right now. But then in terms of the offense and the explosion, I think it's going to come, Croc. I think that they've been in kind of a tough spot. Week 1, they played in the monsoon. Then week 2, Trey Lance got hurt. And now the offense, I think, remains more or less the same. But I think there's 2 points to Trey Lance getting hurt. One, they really bought in this offseason to making that transition to having that read principle as part of every single offensive play. So every offensive play, like they did in Washington, is going to have this read principle with Trey Lance out of the pistol. And they're going to have some sort of read with him and the back on whether he keeps the ball, whether he throws it, whether they're throwing a slant, whether they're throwing a screen to the bubble, whether they're running it. Everything is going to be based off of this read principle. You can't do that with Jimmy Garoppolo. He has no threat to run the football. So they're getting back, I think, to being more under center and conventional Shanahan. I think that's part of it. And then, Croc, I know he's been here for 5 years, but I do think that every season there is like just a need for offensive reps. And I just think that with the way offensive practice, like with the practice time being cut down, so the number of opportunities for rep, with Garoppolo not being available this offseason, he was also rehabbing and all of that. There's just a sinking rhythm that this team still needs to get into, that they're not there yet. I'm not so worried about it. I mean, we've seen Aaron Rodgers the last couple off seasons when he's not participated fully in off-season activities. We've seen him go through the September, little bit of a bumpy road where you're just getting acclimated. You're getting in a rhythm. Him and LaFleur getting in a rhythm. And
Coach T says it right here too. Scoring is down around the league. So it's not just a 49ers issue that I'm seeing, which obviously I put more stock into what the 49ers are doing. So it's like, hey, what are they doing? Why they aren't scoring points? But it's like, nah, dude, look around, right? Tampa Bay, they're not scoring points. A lot of teams in the NFL right now, I think, did the Packers even score week 1? Right? Like there are teams where there's inconsistencies, and you look at 49ers against the Seahawks. Seahawks offense puts up 0 points. Then Seahawks goes out against the Detroit Lions. They score 48 points. So maybe there is something to that. To where it's like,
Seattle's a team that played a lot in the preseason, right? Because of the quarterback competition, and they're starting the 2 rookie tackles. Abraham Lucas, Charles Cross, Geno Smith, Tyler Lockett, DK Metcalf. These guys played halves together in the preseason. So I do think that they're in a little bit of a rhythm from that standpoint. And then scoring being down across the league, I think it's because offensive line play is really down across the league, and defensive line play is really up across the league. Like every team has one pass rusher that you feel like, dang, if we can't block that guy, we're not going to beat this team. And I don't think a lot of teams have very good, units of offensive line that does really well in both run blocking or pass blocking. Either you got a great run blocking unit it's a little bit suspect in pass blocking, or you got a great pass blocking unit like Buffalo that can't run block. So, I mean, Buffalo's improved actually in that area. I shouldn't say that. That was maybe the case a year or two ago, but it's not as bad now. But so because of that, I think that it's like that across the board in the NFL. I think that I'm with you, right? Like in theory, an offense with Deebo Samuel, who's, I mean, one of the best offensive weapons in the NFL. Kittle's one of the best tight ends. Ayuk is maybe the best third option on an offense in the NFL. And then you have a good offensive line. Like Banks looks good. Brendel's, he's getting there. Burford has looked pretty good. Brunskill and him are rotating. McGlinchey has played okay. He looks healthy from his quad. And then McKivitz played okay, and now we'll see how Jalen Moore does. But you had Trent Williams before. Theoretically, it should be a more explosive offense, and I think it'll get there. But in regard to the explosiveness of the offense, also, Croc, I just think it's a little bit stale. I think teams know how to defend the Niners with Garoppolo. I think they know that the only way they're going to get an explosive play is if they throw a screen and Deebo makes 5 guys miss and takes the 50, or the only way they're getting an explosive play is they throw a slant, Deebo makes 5 guys miss and get 50. And this is where I wanted to ask you, because there's a coaching element to this that I never played, so I'm not sure about. But I do think that I wonder if there's a certain level of confidence that Shanahan could instill within Garoppolo to make a concerted effort to start pushing the ball down the field and get people to start respecting that aspect of the Niners games, because they now have the weapons on the outside to do it. And the reason I asked this question is because of 2 examples. One, I'm a fan of Chris Sims, and he worked in New England as a quality controls coach in 2011. Yeah. He said that at that time, when Brady had come off his ACL injury, he was lacking a little bit confidence to push the ball down the field. And he was taking a lot of routes underneath, and he was, playing consistent, efficient. He's the GOAT, he's Tom Brady, but maybe not playing as aggressive as he did, in 2007, with Randy Moss. And he said that in practice, they used to force Brady to not get comfortable checking the ball down and being efficient. And even if it was, covered or a miss, just to get in the habit of pushing the ball down the field. And I saw, Alex Smith, whose career I saw fully start to finish, and I saw the confidence that he lost with the Niners, and I saw how he slowly regained that with Jim Harbaugh. And then in 2017, when he was an MVP candidate and they started 5-0 and he had the season of his career, Andy Reid was able to unlock something in Alex Smith to get him to push the ball down the field. And I don't think it's a physical thing. We see Mike McDaniel doing it for Tua right now, right? I think every quarterback in the NFL at certain capacity has the arm talent on time and on rhythm to push the ball down the field. Now, Tua can't do it when it's not on time and on rhythm, but he can do it when it's on time and on rhythm, and he's done that this year. So is there a coaching element where Shanahan, who's clearly getting these plays open, and there are opportunities to push the ball down the field, and the looks you're getting from defenses say, like, dang, like on a lot of first downs, we just have one-on-one on the outside. We could just throw a quick fade and see if they want to, see like what's going on and just challenge them out there. Like, do you think Shanahan could do that? Because that's really my question, because I have 2 examples in the history of the NFL where I do say that in Brady's case, he's the greatest. But with Alex Smith, I've seen a coach be able to transition Alex Smith's game and bring something out of him that we thought didn't exist before. And it was also later in his career.
I think that's a great question, and I think that's when I bring on my QB guru, Greg Pinelli, here. All right, but first, before we get to Greg, let me answer some. I got a bunch of super chats here. Not a bunch, but I got some super chats here. Let me get to the super chats. And Greg, you think about that. The confidence a coach can instill in a quarterback and what that looks like, or the process of that. All right, think about that question. But let me get to some of these super chats. And I think I answered this one.
By the way, Croc, how are you starring these questions? Do you just right-click and star them, or?
You just click on, once you kind of hover over the comment, there's a little star.
Oh, okay,
and then you just click the star.
Teaching me some technology.
Yeah, oh gosh. We got Soriano here. He says they use Kittle to block against the Rams. So I think that pertains to us talking about how, man, you got all these weapons. You got Kittle, you got Deebo, you got Ayuk, you got Kyle Juszczyk, use those guys. And it's like, well, Kittle, they're kind of using him in the blocking game as well. I think that's understandable, but, man, your offense is so much more dangerous with him. Now, maybe you don't have the opportunity. Maybe you got to double, I'm looking at him right now, but Aaron Donald. So you got to leave Kittle in the block more. You just got to help out your left tackle or your right tackle. McGlinchey, pass protection, he could be suspect. Colton McKivitz, when he's out there, left tackle, like he could be suspect. So maybe hey, we got to use somebody in the block. But use Charlie Warner. Stop using George Kittle. Throw the ball to George Kittle so he can break off a 50-yard
because he's doing the same thing with Kyle Pitts.
Yeah, I mean, use somebody else. All right, so that's that. And then here we go. Kyle is too conservative and leads on the defense to close out games. With that, the defense, he should be more aggressive. And I see Coach T in the chat, and he had a good kind of rebuttal to that, where he said, when him coaching football and he's coaching on the defensive side, he's like, don't do anything to ruin the game. Like, let us as a defense handle it. Now, I personally think that it's kind of a risky way because, in the NFL, like, offenses are good, defense can be good, whatever. But at some point, they just kind of might get you. So I would offensively, if I have the opportunity to stay ahead, do that. Obviously, I mean, I think that, most people would. But just in the sense of, playing off of your defense or playing off your, I don't know, it's tough. I think there's a balance. 49ers have a great defense. I think if I have a great defense, maybe I don't know. I see it the other way. I do see teams that it's like, our defense is bad, so we're going to take more risk.
Croc, I will say one thing because I think our immediate comparison to this is 2019, because I think this is the best defense since then, even though those other two defenses in 2020 and 2021 were top 5. The one thing I feel like that's missing that was there in 2019 is that kind of just Shanahan brilliance element where the offense is kind of dead in the water. You lose a little bit of momentum. Shanahan has one play in his bag that he knows is an automatic explosive, and he'll just kickstart the offense, right? You go down 16-0 at home. You're sluggish against Arizona. All right, Shanahan's just going to throw a throwback screen to Richie James. That's going to gain 60 yards. Week 19, you're winning in Seattle. It's only 13-0 at half. Russell Wilson goes on this really, really long drive and makes it 13-7. First play, you run a cover 3 beater. Seattle's playing Seattle 3. You get Kyle Juszczyk on a rail route straight down the sideline for like 40 yards. So, I think that we haven't seen – it's only 4 games this year, but I haven't seen that exactly with Shanahan. Like, to me, throwing a tunnel screen to Debo and having Debo go 15 yards is not it's blocked up. It's a sound call, but it's not really Shanahan deep in his bag. He's game planning this, right?
Oh, it's a screen, and Debo is very special.
Yeah.
Here we go real quick. Like Brady said, I think there's just a lot of bad football. And Tom Brady did say that the other day. He's not very impressed with what's going on with all the 2-2 teams. We got Big Tone here. He says, as a Warrior fan, I think kind of sad that to get slapped by Tristan Thompson in the club, but you club a guy your own size, but sneak Superman punch. I guess I see what you're saying. All right. I would say the size difference between Tristan Thompson and Draymond Green and Draymond Green and Jordan Poole is probably the same. Tristan Thompson, he's much bigger than Draymond. But I hear you. I don't know. I don't know about the club incident. I have no idea.
I didn't know that he slapped him. That's funny.
Yeah, I don't know. I literally have no idea how any of that went down. We have one here. Somebody asking about you on Grant's show. We'll get back to that. And then we do have Jets Gang. He says, can y'all say I was right about Zach Wilson being the best quarterback from the 2021 class? So I was watching the game the other day, and we're not going to get too far off track here, but I thought he was pretty terrible through about 3 quarters. And then second half, he did make some throws where I'm like, man, that was a good throw. Hey, Zach Wilson, okay, that was a good throw. There were a few of those, but I don't think I came away with, this is the best quarterback from the 2021 class. I ain't coming away with that. But, yeah, I think I wouldn't make any sweeping comments about any of the quarterbacks from 2021 class. I would say I'm excited to continue to watch Zach Wilson. I like his ability, and I think he can do some high-level stuff. And, all right, can he be more consistent? And I would like to see him, grow within that for the rest of this year, kind of what it looks like. He's coming off an injury. I don't expect him to come in and just be firing great passes all over the place. But he showed some ability, obviously some inconsistencies and some rust there. We'll see how he does for the rest of the year. I'm excited about that. All right. Got Greg Pinelli here. And Greg, this is our resident quarterback guru, trains a bunch of quarterbacks all throughout. I don't want to say just California. He trains quarterbacks all over. He's a quarterback guru. And when I have quarterback questions, I go to Greg. Greg, this is Vish. Vish, this is Greg.
What's going on, man? How you doing?
Nice to meet you, Greg.
Greg, you sound
Big
like
fan.
a quarterback.
Do I sound better with my new microphone here?
Yeah, but
Are
I'm
we
saying
all right?
you sound like a quarterback.
I
Is
don't
that
even
the
know what
same
that
microphone that you guys got there going on?
It
Yeah.
is. I even got the same arm setup from Amazon the other day as Crocker, and we had to test it out on the backstage of something the other day. I don't have a studio right now. I don't have this glorious office like Croc has. My office is being worked on at the facility, so I'm in my
a
living
little bit
room.
better than mine. I got this.
You know, I was like that like last week, and time passed, and everybody roasted me in the chat that I needed a better microphone. So here we are. Hopefully it sounds better. Does it sound all right, Croc?
It sounds cool. A little like, and you're on the mic for sure.
I don't know if I'm on the mic or not.
No, like check your settings. Go to settings and look and go
Yeah,
to
you
audio,
go to audio
and then go to
settings
mic.
in StreamYard.
And then it says sure.
This
then
is
you're-
I am.
Okay, yeah, then you're good then. It does sound better than before. It's a little muffled, a little kind of like a deep, but I don't know. I could be tripping.
I'm gonna be
We'll
totally
have to-
honest with you. I've listened to this show with Greg on before, and I didn't really see a problem that much with the audio. But this is
See, here we
definitely
go.
better. I could see the
Just-
difference, but I didn't.
Just went and spent $300 on a microphone for it to sound the same. So I appreciate the
No.
the
It
feedback.
sounded
No,
better.
I'm
I
just
just thought
messing
it
with
sounded
you.
fine
I'm messing
previously
with
as
you.
well. That's all I'm saying.
We're gonna have to toy with it. We're gonna have to toy with it.
Greg, what are your thoughts on instilling the confidence in the quarterback? And we've talked about this in the past. Is it just a confidence thing? There was a throw that you pointed out. I should bring that throw up. I don't have that throw brought up. I have just 2 plays. But
Yeah.
before they have Jimmy Garoppolo launched one, not down the right sideline that everybody's probably thinking, but down the left sideline, back leg, launches it. It looks like a really like kind of a beautiful ball. The trajectory of it, there was no separation by the receivers.
Was it the one he
felt
threw up
incomplete.
at the end of the half to Ray
Yeah.
McLeod?
Yes. So Greg was
Yeah.
actually kind of impressed with just kind of what it looked like. Not so much, just, oh man, that was a beautiful throw. But why did he throw that with, is it just like a low pressure thing? Or why?
Yeah, I think that type of throw, I mean, realistically, based on what they did, the following play was one of those throws to drop back and just basically chuck it down the field in hopes that the clock is probably going to run out with the ball being in the air. And then they ended up having 2 seconds left, and they do the same thing similar to the right side and just threw it out of bounds. But I'm not saying that it was an absolute dime, but when you go back and look at the throw and everybody's like, oh, Jimmy can't throw it deep down the field. He threw it off his back foot with ease, and it was 45 yards down the field. I'm like, well, why don't we just have him step into the damn ball and actually watch him throw the ball down the field? If he can do that off his back foot, there's got to be something he can do throwing it down the field. And so it caught me off guard because we always hear this talk of Jimmy can't throw the deep ball, but he did that off his back foot. And it wasn't a terrible ball. It would be more like a 50-50 ball, I guess, if you want to call it that. But it looked fairly easy for him. So that was one of the things that we talked about the other day. It's like, well, if he can do that, let's just see him air the ball out a little bit more. But again, you go back to the West Coast offense. It's not necessarily predicated on the deep ball or throwing balls like that down the field. And we talked about even on the phone the other day with Tom Brady. Besides the year he played with Randy Moss, there was very few times where you'd watch Tom Brady chuck it deep down the game. A lot of it was worked underneath, crossing routes, stick routes, curl routes, option routes underneath. And he would pick apart defenses with a solid defense typically and a pretty decent balanced run game behind him. And that's kind of where I think the 49ers are at. But I think that the run game has to get cranking a little bit more, obviously. And once that does happen, or hopefully it does, and assuming guys can stay healthy, that it would open up more of the play action passing game. But for the time being, you're left with a screen game that, they've always seemed to do, but a screen game and then a lot of underneath game, which is basically Jimmy's specialty or his go-to, and that's Kyle's go-to with Jimmy.
I have a question for
Oh,
both
go
of
ahead.
you real
Go ahead,
quick.
Vish.
Have either of you guys watched Garoppolo at Eastern Illinois at all?
I've seen the highlights, but I didn't
Just the
like.
highlights, yeah. Not a ton.
Okay,
I didn't
so
watch game film.
Yeah, I haven't seen it either, but I've watched, like, there's some old games you can find. And the funny thing is, and the reason I think this conversation is so great, and I'm glad to be able to ask either of you, because you would know much better than me these questions, is that they played they played a lot of empty. They were a spread offense, so it was a lot of very, very clear, and everything was very clear to Garoppolo on where to go with the ball pre-snap. So he, like, similar to the 49ers, he's always gotten the ball out very quick, but he actually threw like fades, like one-on-one balls down on the outside, like back shoulder, like, just because, you know, you're playing in a spread offense, you're going to get those kind of opportunities more. He actually threw them like really well and consistently. And like, then there was the report, I don't know if you remember, at the start of last year from Albert Breer, that they got Brandon Cooks in New England not for Tom Brady, but for Garoppolo. And then there were reports that they got Garoppolo because at the time they felt Brady was regressing, and one of the things that was regressing with Brady was his ability to push the ball down the field. Now, Brady has changed all of that, right? Like, he's had a second career after that that's like the greatest career in NFL history. But like, I ask all those questions to say, like, I don't think Shanahan's restricting him in any way, but there's a clear change with Garoppolo because there's a clear hesitancy with him. I feel like the ball you talked about, he just ripped on his back foot off full instinct, so he was just able to let it go. But then the Charlie Warner one, when he knew it was open and he knew he was going to throw it and all of that, that felt like a very unconfident throw because he missed the Debo throw and he missed the wide open throw against Denver as well. So, like, what goes into that, like, with a quarterback's confidence, if you could elaborate?
Yeah, I think that and many coaches have different ways of building confidence. A lot of it, in 99.9% of the time, you see it where it's typically some type of inside run play first, right? You know, everybody's kind of getting the nerves out or whatever it may be, and then it typically starts out with like a slant or a bubble or a screen or something to kind of get them rolling, where it's going to be a completion and you start to get that guy rolling. But what we see in the offense is a lot of the same stuff. Not to say that the first drive wasn't great, but at the first drive and a lot of the throws in the game were everything that we see every single week, right? It's not like it's changing from week to week, or at some point or another we're going to take deep shots. And I will say this, the one difference that you watch a lot with guys like Brady in New England, and then Aaron Rodgers, where he would take a lot of deep shots. Tom Brady would hit a lot of his first or second progressions right off the read. Sometimes those reads, if you gave him the same offense or the same type of progressions, Aaron Rodgers might skip through 1 and 2 to go to the deep shot with Devontae, or take a deep shot with Jordy Nelson back in the day, or whatever it may be. And I think that's the difference between those two guys in the offenses that they play in, is you got one guy that'll take the first or second progression where it's a little bit easier, let's keep moving the sticks, and then you got another guy that's going to be more of the risk taker because he could do that, and he's probably the most accurate deep ball thrower ever, that'll go to the third progression in the read and take those deep shots, take a little bit more risk, and sometimes it pays off and sometimes it doesn't. So the confidence thing usually comes with a lot of underneath throws. That's a conversation that's usually had with the quarterback and the coach, and how you feel on this day, or you know, what are they throwing at you? And it's usually, these things are typically predicated on what the defense is throwing at you. Like against Denver, I think that Denver's defense and what they were showing with the Niners gave them the ability to maybe take some deep shots where we didn't really take deep shots. And then you go against the Rams, where they played a little bit more of a too high look sometimes. The protection was better, and it gave Jimmy more abilities to scan the field underneath. But again, a lot of these throws are rhythm throws, and me and Croc have talked about that before, where it's a lot of timing, rhythm, 5 and hitch under the gun, or a quick 5 and hitch under center, or, you know, not taking resets, quick threes out of the gun, and the ball's out of Jimmy's hand, where you don't really see Jimmy go through a pure progression, meaning scanning from one side of the field all the way to the back side of the field. The ball is usually out, you know, into the second progression, and sometimes he might not get to the wide open receiver that's streaking down the field, whatever it may be. So I don't know. It's different, but at the same time, it's different from case to case as far as teams go. But the one thing that has been consistent is it's a lot of the same stuff over and over and over. And it's not to say that it doesn't work. It's just that's what we're getting with Jimmy. And I think we did see it open up a little bit more with Trey. And I think that Trey was taking a little bit more risks. And I think that's what people want to see. People do want to see the risk because, again, the outcome is a little bit more sexy than it is watching somebody dink and dunk all the way down the field.
Well, I think the frustrating part is when you dink and dunk, but then we're actually not getting down the field. Then you see opportunities and you don't take advantage of those opportunities, right? And I know anybody that watched the show, was it last week when we went over the Broncos game, and I got stuck on for like 20 minutes, right, on that one play because I just for the life of me could not understand how his mind didn't work to say, you know what, they showed me this look early in the game. Too high, cover 4. They're showing a cover 4 look, and at the snap, safety rolls down. And I got one-on-one vertical with a guy. He never got to it. They showed him the same look later in the game. Too high, cover 4 look, safety rolls down, and you got man-to-man on a linebacker with Brandon Ayuk. And it just never processed in his head. And it's like, gosh, like, Jimmy, why are you such a robot? Like, why are you such a robot? So I think that's kind of my bigger issue.
Robot mindset.
Understanding, though, but I understand Jimmy's mind doesn't work that way. And that's fine. Like, if offense is going to be successful, cool. But hopefully we get back to scoring like 27 points, right? Because he was a robot in 2019, but you're putting up 27 points. It doesn't matter. Right now, not clicking on all cylinders. There were a couple plays here that I wanted to bring up and put on the screen.
Hold on, he said Greg L. Mike. Is it really sound that bad? Do we got issues with the mic here? I need to know.
Good.
I think you sound fine.
Yeah.
I don't know what I sound like. So
You sound great. You sound like you're on the radio, but you've been doing this a while.
Yeah. There's a slight muffle to yours. I don't know why though.
Is this better if I take this off?
Yeah.
No, don't take that off. I don't think that makes a difference.
He said,
I didn't. I heard a little bit of static when I still hear it. Never mind.
All right, we're gonna have to figure this out.
We'll figure it out. But right now, I promise you're fine. You're fine.
All right.
Tell him he's an L or something. All right, here we go. So this is one play.
That's not the best insult cry.
All right, so right. I only brought up 2 plays. And the reasons why I only brought up 2 plays was because these were 2 plays where people had questions about. And I keep seeing on social media, Kyle Juszczyk wide open, Kyle Juszczyk wide open. And I'm like, you know what? There's no better person to break this down than Greg. And guys, this is not about Greg. You're making excuses for Jimmy G. This is not about, that's how I hear y'all, by the way. But this is not about Greg making excuses for Jimmy. I just want to talk through, like, what is he looking at? What is he thinking? And what is this, how does this go through your mind as a quarterback? All right, so I'm going to push play here. This is a play where first I'll run it through so you can see it, and then we'll go back, and then we'll rewind it back. So a lot of people are thinking that Jimmy should have hit Juszczyk up the seam. All right, so you see him run up the seam, and he's like, how is the ball not on him? All right, but we'll watch it from this angle. I have it from the back angle as well. You could just kind of talk through what you're seeing. I'll continue to kind of go back and forth with rewinding it. All right.
Yeah. So I'm looking at this, and I asked you the other day. I said, what route was everybody talking about Juszczyk being wide open? Because I went back and watched the film, and I couldn't find it. And I was like, what are they talking about? And so right here, realistically, go ahead and rewind it really quick, Croc. So this is just a 4-man rewind it. Just go to the start of it. Okay. So right here, looks like it's going to be a 4-man pressure based off the 2 ends, right? Stand up, pinning their ears back. They're probably going right. And then go ahead and play it just a little bit more.
All right. And
right there. So again, it looks like a 4-man pressure. You still got the top side D end standing up. And then the middle linebacker is going to bounce out of there. And what he's going to do, he's going to take that middle hook section, okay? And once he starts flying out, basically he's trying to stop that slant from happening, but there's plenty of separation. So Jimmie sees number 2 outside here, not the line.
Should I go to the back view, or is this a good view?
No, this is a fine view. Just go to circle. I can't even see. Is it 53? He brings pressure. Right there.
No, they bring 45 and they drop one out of the other side.
Yeah, so they drop one out. So some could call it a zone blitz, but zone blitz usually means they're bringing 5 or whatever it may be.
It's a sim pressure.
Yeah, exactly. But what Jimmie sees here is, look at the huge gap in the field between the middle linebacker now and Jalen Ramsey on the bottom. Okay? So he knows he's got the slant right now if he takes it. That's the right throw. That's the right progression, the right throw. He hits the slant. I'm sorry, not even the slant. It's Deebo Samuel. So they're trying to get separation, and I thought it was a slant by Ayuk on the bottom. All they're trying to do is run him off. So notice how outside here, Brandon Ayuk takes the MOR, so that's a must outside release on the bottom. What they're trying to do is clear Jalen Ramsey, get him to turn his back so that Deebo Samuel could leak out of the backfield. They're basically trying to hit him now, and they know that they have spacing between Juszczyk and Brandon Ayuk running up the field enough to where that middle linebacker can't get out wide enough and fast enough to end up covering Deebo Samuel on the dump off or like the fin route, which is like a 5-yard in route. But basically, if you're going to say that Juszczyk is wide open, Juszczyk is open because that middle linebacker is peeling outside to basically go to Deebo at that point, and there's a safety over the top anyways. So if you want to take the safety that's playing 5 yards off over the top of Juszczyk, basically flying out to the middle of the field anyways, I wouldn't say that he was wide open. I'd say that Juszczyk is doing his job. But in theory, I will say this, in theory, when you do have verticals against a one high safety, which they peel downhill, so it turns into that play side safety here, peeling downhill towards Deebo, and Juszczyk runs right towards him. Now, if Jimmie, I will say this, if Jimmie looks and wants that bad enough, if he looks and just gives him a shoulder, let's just say he shoulder pumps him, whatever it may be, or stares him down like he has right here and does a quick reset with his feet, he could get the ball out to Juszczyk right now before that safety's flying off. But again, I don't know what the true progression is. I don't know what Kyle Shanahan is telling Jimmie. Those conversations are all different, and that's something that we'll never know. We've talked about that before. This could be a setup with Kyle says, hit Deebo on this. I like this. Hit Deebo and stay with it, right? Or it could be a thing where the
one thing that a lot of people forget, Kyle is in Jimmie's ear up until 15 seconds left on the play clock.
Right. So I do like this with Juszczyk. It would have to probably be a back shoulder ball, just because that safety, if you look at number 4, he's flying to the middle. So right there, he's already on the move. That play, that throw would be extremely tight right here. He'd have to throw that ball, and it would be a pretty tight throw based off how that safety is moving off the other hash.
I have a question too. You look at the drop he takes from the shotgun too. It looks very much like he's setting up to throw. It's obviously quick game, but he's looking to throw like very, very quickly as soon as his back foot hits the ground. Like right here, you look at his body position. He doesn't look like someone that's in a position to throw the ball to Kyle Juszczyk and ping a ball.
No, and that's why I was saying this one, I think, based off of that route that Ayuk is running, which, like I said, it's a MOR. So your job, if Crocker's playing corner and I'm playing receiver, no matter where he's aligned, if it's inside, outside, my job is to get Crocker to turn his back so that he has his eyes away from the flat at that point. And when I went to Michigan last year, Harbaugh called it the bus stop route. If you don't run this, you might as well take your shit and go to the bus stop because you're off the team. Because if somebody peels off and kills that flat route or the swing route, whatever it may be, that's on you for not getting that corner to turn his back. So based off what this looks like, I think that this is basically a one-man designated route, but if something happened to pop open, you could take the shot. But I wouldn't say that Juszczyk is wide open. I'd say Juszczyk is wide open because the Jimmie's basically getting the ball out of his hands. And Crocker knows this too. Spaces on the field versus film close a lot quicker than people think they do. A lot quicker. So if Jimmie throws that ball right now,
he had to have the ball out of his hands right now, throwing to he would have had to anticipate, and that's part of it, right? Where again, I talk about him being a robot. To make this throw to use check, just my thoughts. He would have had to know pre-snap, I'm going to use check. So I'm going to manipulate the coverage with my eyes and look to Debo, knowing I'm throwing to use check. Like, he would have to know that so that it can happen boom, 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 so that he can throw it right now in this little window to where even then, use check probably get hit.
And it would have to be a perfect throw, probably back shoulder to slow up use check from absolutely getting beheaded there from the safety. So it's not. Things happen very quick on the field, and you find out really quick how fast dudes really are when you go ahead and try and throw a ball 25 yards down the field and they're on them like this. And the thing is the safety was rolling. If they ran a seam from the backside, I would say that would be a better look based off
He's
of
throwing straight into
rolling.
the rotation.
Yeah, like if Kittle.
Exactly, the
so you
safety
have Kittle,
rotation.
You have Kittle right here. If he would have got vert here and vert here, then his read would be the safety. And then all right, which side is the safety helping to? Because likely this other guy right here, yeah, that guy would probably come down, or Kittle could do that thing where they bend behind the backer, so he kind of come up and then bend right behind them, and he'll have his choice. Do I want to throw the use check up the seam or to Kittle? But I mean, again, we're talking about a hypothetical situation that just not the case.
And then in a single high coverage with a rotation like this, you wouldn't bend it. You typically only bend it when it's a too high safety look.
Okay, yeah.
Just so you're bending it inside that play side safety that you're running at. When it's single high like this, you'd want to keep it more outside the seam, further away from that safety anyway. So based off the look here, those are just runoffs. They're trying to get Debo the ball underneath, and yeah, it's just one of those yak routes. Somebody said it in the comments. It's pretty much what it is. Let's get our athlete the ball and let him do what he's going to do with it. That throw up top to me doesn't stick out. It looks good, but it looks good for about a quarter of a second, and if it's thrown any later than that, then it's over. So
I have a question for both of you, because I feel like, especially as someone who's never played but is very interested and enthusiastic about football, you two who have played can really, really share this information and drive this home. Because I feel like there's so many people that try and watch this on film and try to see a lot of this, and they don't realize how instinctive and how reactive the sport is and how quick that moment is for the quarterback. Like, for example, I got in a real big argument, not a real big argument, but I got in like a multiple thread argument on Twitter last week. I think it was the first third down of the game. They get Brandon Ayuk wide open on a post round. People are like, well, he should have seen that. He should have thrown it. And I was thinking in my head, well, they busted the route distribution on the bunch, and they rotated to a middle of the field close. They rotated to a one high man coverage with the robber in the middle of the field. You're never going to ask your quarterback to throw a post to the point man in the bunch against a one high coverage. Like, why would his eyes even be there would be my question. Well, yeah, he was wide open, but that was because they busted. Like, how hard is it to react to that on the spot, especially when you have so much preparation for so many things? Because that preparation doesn't account for other people making mistakes, right?
Right. And so I would say this, that, a lot of routes do look open sometimes, and it is the quarterback's responsibility to make some sort of reaction off of it. But at the same time, some route concepts are predicated on what shell you're going to see, whether it's a one high shell, middle field closed, right? Or middle field's open when it's a two high shell. And you already know, okay, if they rolled a one, I'm not even looking at this route or this route. I'm supposed to be working off of this or this, right? Mm-hmm. And again, it does. And somebody said everybody acts like them. The quarterback has a Madden point of view. Yes, your eye level, it's a lot harder to see things, especially whether you're 6'4", 6'2", or Kyler's size, which I can imagine is a little bit harder. When you got guys that are 6'5" or 6'6" in front of you and you're playing at field level, right? So you see the safety rotate. As soon as I see a safety go to the middle of the field, you might write off 1 to 2 routes already. They're gone. And those are eliminated, and now you're supposed to work, 1 to 2 underneath. If it's not there, you hit your check. So it's all these route concepts that people see on TV. Just because you have 4 wide receivers doesn't necessarily mean that we're looking from 1, 2, 3 to 4, then our check down. It's usually 1 to 2. Okay, now I got to hit my check down. And I would say that it's like that in most pure progression type of reads or most offenses, unless it's just a free-for-all, let's drop back and see what the hell we can make happen, and you just chuck the ball up down the field, which I would prefer a quarterback going through those proper reads and noticing safeties, and I think that he does. Obviously, against the Broncos, he struggled identifying that rolling safety, that robber safety coming down, or the buzz safety when they went into zone. But at the same time, I think you eliminate a lot of mistakes and a lot of stupid risks when you stick to the script and what the coach is telling you to do as far as how that play is built versus a 1 high or 2 high safety look.
All right, here we go. Got another play, and this was definitely a play that was very popular on Twitter. And I saw somebody say, show the throw to Kyle Juszczyk, and it's like, that's not controversial. I bring Greg on here so he can kind of talk through some of the things that he's thinking. And I think you and I talked about this, and I was like, hey, everybody's showing Ayuk wide open on his whip route. And you were like, well, this is why he's kind of running that route than kind of what he had behind. So I love the way that you kind of explained it to me so I can understand. So I'm like, all right, this is something we definitely got to talk about on the show. All right, so what we have here is I'll let it play through so everybody can kind of see it. And I think everybody was really focused on what they saw from Ayuk, which really, he whoops him. Now, listen, from a defensive standpoint, this is why he's getting beat. Like, look at his eyes. So it's not, that's terrible eyes, right? Like, he's over here cheating. You're not going to get there. He's cheating on, all right, what is Jimmy Garoppolo trying to do? He's trying to make a big play. All right,
this throw is insane, though.
Yeah, this was an absolute dime. The anticipation of it was crazy. The fact that he, by the time Jimmy lets go of the ball, Kittle's got 2 guys behind him, 2 guys in front of him right now, and he's not even open. And he throws him to the back of the end zone open. Ideally, you would like to see him catch this ball. I thought this was an absolute dime. But I think what the play is built for, if he's going to hit this whip route on the bottom, and that's what we'll call it. Some people call it different things, but
a return,
whatever it may be.
Yeah, they call it a return route.
Yeah, so everybody has different terms for it. Could be a whip route. Some people call a whip route where it's going outside and then back in. Again, everybody has different terms for everything based on their offense here. But first of all, you got a one-on-one matchup with Jalen Ramsey on the goal line. Not many quarterbacks, I don't care if it's Jimmy or whoever it may be, there's probably not many quarterbacks that really want to see that matchup that tight on the bottom. But I think that this route on the bottom is more built for, we just talked about that MOR or the must outside release route on the prior. This route is built more to take Jalen right out of the play because you have Kittle running essentially like an over route and then Debo following him. And so what he's trying to do here, if you notice, I think if he was going to hit that route or if that was part of the progression anyways, that you wouldn't necessarily see Jimmy G do some type of play action read because it's going to happen so fast. He'd have to get that ball out of his hands. Basically, it would be a very, very quick play action. But what Jimmy's trying to do is get the backers that are essentially in the lane to suck up or get wide. And that's why Jimmy is looking wide. And either Debo or Kittle would be open at this point. Okay, so this is kind of your alert read on the bottom or your guy that if you really want to throw it, you're going to have to, that's the only person you're looking at because you're not going to go back into the progression and scan from Ayuk back to Kittle and then back to Debo from there. Because of the play action, I think what he's trying to do is get these linebackers to draw up with the play action, and then Kittle would eventually be wide open. Well, he wasn't wide open. Jimmy threw him open with a dime. And it ended up obviously not being complete. But that route with the play action on the bottom, it would have to happen extremely quick. And again, that matchup, I don't know many quarterbacks that would like that matchup on the bottom anyways, with Jalen Ramsey playing tight coverage, man coverage on the bottom. And so I don't have an issue with this. He makes a great throw. I think that if this was a touchdown, I think there would be a lot less people hammering Jimmie over not throwing to the open wide receiver. But I like the throw. I think it was a dime. That was an elite throw. So yeah, there's some people I'd take Brandon Ayuk over any corner with that route, and I think that it looks great, but at some point or another, let's say that Jimmie stares at him, right? Jimmie stares at Jalen Ramsey at Brandon Ayuk, and it doesn't get open. Now the whole progression is jacked up, right? It would have to happen very quickly and scan right back across the field.
I have a question too, because I feel like there's two things for me. I feel like this entire play is ruined by the fact that Ayuk beat him so badly. Because I think if you add the play action element to the play, right, and he gets out and throws the alert, again, for me, so much of it is does he look like he's in a position within the timing of the play to throw that ball? And to get that ball out with enough pace, if Ramsey's not getting burnt because his eyes are caught in the backfield, and not have that ball be a pick six, it's a little bit of a question mark. And then I feel like so much of Shanahan's pass game, it's tied into the quarterback's feet. So the quarterback's feet and body position oftentimes kind of give you an indicator of what he's looking at first. That's how I always try to decipher it. And after the play action, he takes the 3-step drop and a hitch. So it feels like the play was built for Kittle all day. That's just how I read through that. But I just don't understand off the play action. Okay, Ayuk whips Ramsey, but is the guy in a position to throw the ball to Ayuk? I would say hell no.
No, if you look at his feet right here.
What's he looking at?
No, he might be looking at Ayuk, and again, to get the defense to flow that way, he's looking there, but he's not even close. Like Vish said, he's not even close to being in a position to get that ball out now.
So then now it's like, oh, he's open. Like, that wasn't my pre-snap read. My pre-snap read is this play is designed to hold the defensive back down so I can get George Kittle behind, right? I want to get the linebackers up. I want to hold that DB down, and we're going to get Kittle behind those guys. And that's what he's preparing for with his feet. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, and you do have to create a little bit of a high-low here, because I told Crocker the other day, let's just say that Ayuk runs a fade route. Well, then now you have that over route coming from Kittle. Jalen Ramsey is going to be standing right there in the zone, looking back at Jimmie, waiting to pick that ball off in the back of the end zone. So they're trying to get him busy, essentially, and get him out of that route so that there's an open lane for Kittle. Now, it wasn't open, and what happens? He throws an absolute dime, throws him open, and that's what good quarterbacks do. Now, everybody hammer me, oh, Jimmy's not a good quarterback. Whatever, that's fine. You can say what you want to say, but the throw was an absolute dime. So I liked what he did. I think he made a play out of something that wasn't necessarily there. And I think it should have been a touchdown and we missed it by a half step. So if he does throw that ball late to Ayuk down at the bottom, you're probably watching Jimmie chase Jalen Ramsey for 10 yards and then watching number 5 go up the sideline. So those types of throws, especially on the goal line, 1, risky, but 2, you can't be late on him. You got to be on time. And based off of his feet, that doesn't look like he was even remotely thinking about that Jalen Ramsey, that Brandon Ayuk whip against Jalen Ramsey.
I can accept that more than John Lynch guarding Brandon Ayuk in the slot.
You mean Josie Jewell?
Hey, you see what he did last night? He was out there wrecking shop on the O-line last night.
No, he's actually kind of good, to be honest.
Yeah, he is. He's coming around.
I was calling him John Lynch Jr. against the 49ers, but I'm like, damn, this motherfucker is everywhere. And then, I was watching him last night. He was good, too. And I just couldn't tell. Are these offenses trash? Or
what's funny is
Twitter. I couldn't say much on Twitter because they just beat the 49ers. So I can't say too much. But I was like, this is terrible.
No, their defense, if you watch, their defense they have a really solid defense. I think that they play well. I think they have the DBs for it, and that's why they can afford to go to a one high safety look or a blitz look a ton. And then you went back and watched the Rams game, and I'm thinking the Rams are going to come out in this one high look. Let's put together the blitz packages. We just watched the Broncos beat them. We're going to run something similar, and based off of what Jimmie has struggled with. And the Rams start to come out in these 2 high looks and let Jimmie pick them apart. I think if people do run a lot of one high looks where they're rotating safeties, blitz pressures, things like that. You have to obviously have DBs that you trust, but I think that's where Jimmie could get in some trouble. If you're going to let Jimmie drop back and play against a too high zone look that's easy to read, you know what? Yeah, you're probably going to get picked apart, and I think Shanahan's going to eat that up.
So Jay here, I think Jay is talking about correct me if I'm wrong, Jay. I think he's talking about that slot throw that Brandon Ayuk 101 on Jonas Jr.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, that's a Trey Lance throw. We've seen him make that. But the other one, which is crazy, I just thought about this when he said that, and he's talking about, and I'm thinking about the whip route, right, that we just saw Ayuk run. And you know what's funny? Trey Lance's first throw in the NFL, it was a touchdown off of play action and a whip route to Trent Sherfield. Now, he ain't had Jalen Ramsey on him. And I don't know what everybody else did. But I do know it was a play action and where he did a little play fake, then he just looked and he just throws it to Sherfield, who whipped the guy the same way. And he threw a touchdown. That was his first touchdown in the NFL.
Just to the left, right?
Yeah, it was to the left.
And the back, I think that was the same thing, too, where the back and the receiver were on the same side.
Huh. That's just interesting. I don't know. And I don't know. I don't know what he's being told to look at. I don't know what, because it's one of those like, well, oh, yeah, I mean, that's an easy touchdown throw. And then you look at this play and it's like, well, it potentially would have been if that was the first read. So, this is not a Trey Lance ain't playing. This is not a Trey Lance versus Jimmie thing, but just seeing how their minds work. And I think that's the interesting thing. I've been watching, I talked about it before, the Jeffrey Dahmer series on Netflix. And it's wild, right? And I'm just look like how people's minds work. And I'm like kind of intrigued by that. And it's even more intriguing how quarterbacks' minds work. Because I've started to pay a lot more attention to it, probably since Colin Kaepernick, when he was playing and what it looked like. And then, okay, you get Jimmy Garoppolo, what it looks like. Then you're watching other guys because like, okay, well, Kirk Cousins, like, Kyle really like Kirk Cousins. Like, how does his mind work? Then now I'm paying attention to a lot of it. And then I have two guys in the same offense, essentially, right? Same offensive coordinator with Trey Lance and Jimmy Garoppolo. And it's so interesting to see just how different their minds are and how they see the field. And it's drastically different. And I think I think that's the cool thing about football, right? Like just so intriguing, just different ways of how this quarterback is seeing it and this quarterback is seeing it. And you get these totally different results, good or bad. And that's wild. Somebody said Deshaun Watson's mind is crazy.
I would agree there.
Yeah.
The other thing, somebody said real quick, based off the body language of Brandon Ayuk or based off the body language of receivers, you would think that he was expecting that ball. Let me tell you something about receivers, and Crocker knows this too. Receivers are open when they're not open, when they're wide open. They're going to let you know about it when you get back to the huddle. You're trying to get the play call from the sideline, and you got a receiver in your, I was wide open. I'm wide open. Why aren't you throwing it to me? It doesn't matter if they have two guys on their back. Crocker will know this. Receivers are always open, whether they're open or not, and they will let you know about it as a quarterback every single time. I guarantee Brandon Ayuk went back and told him he was wide open. I guarantee it. You listen to the Chad Johnson stuff from back in the day, right? I'm wide open. I'm always open, or whoever said that I'm always open.
Yeah,
it's literally like that with damn near every receiver that I've ever played with. They want the ball, and I get it. That's their job, to catch the ball and go. But it might not be. They could run an MOR on the outside and be wide open, and if the quarterback doesn't see him because he got the ball out of his hands quickly, that receiver will be running down the field with his hand up, and everybody's going to say he's wide open. But maybe he was never even part of the progression anyways. He wasn't even supposed to be looked at. So that's for the quarterback to make an adjustment on the fly and throw it to him. But if you miss him, look, sorry, I'm going to get back to you next time, or I'll check it next time. But receivers are always open, and they're always going to let you know about it.
Greg, that's because people like us, we never. Oh, okay. My bad. Excuse me.
Well, no, I was just gonna ask him. No, go ahead, Vince. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say we never miss when the clear out route gets open in Madden. We always hit it. That's
everybody's always gonna take the shot, right?
Right.
So no, it's my question for you, Greg, is what makes a quarterback great? Because we see this, right, and it's almost like a test, and then the coach gives you the answers to the test. And, some of these are like multiple choice, and you're looking at the multiple choice questions, and it's like, dang, well, this looks like it could be right. This looks like it could be right, right? What differentiates the guys that, like, don't get all the multiple question answers right, as opposed to the guy that just aces it and gets an A, right? Like, as it pertains to quarterbacks. Like, we're seeing all this, and we see some of the answers there, some of the answers not there, and sometimes guys are able to make a play even when the answers aren't quite there. Like, what makes quarterbacks great? Because I think a lot of what we talk about here goes into where I say, oh, Jimmy Garoppolo's a robot, and he's going to do everything exactly to a T. But, I mean, you train Josh Allen. What scratch everything I've said. What goes into Josh Allen being great?
I think the competitive drive that he has is so different, and I've talked about that on multiple podcasts. The guy is so competitive. It doesn't matter if we're playing ping pong, if we're playing golf. I'm about to play Call of Duty with him here in 30 minutes, right? Fast Friday, we play Call of Duty every Friday. And I've told you that we play every single Friday during the season, unless it's a Monday game. Who's better? He's been better lately, way better lately. I just don't play that much. I hadn't played since they lost to the Chiefs, and then started playing again 3 weeks ago or 4 weeks ago, whatever it's been. So, he's definitely been better. Steph is not bad at Call of Duty. He's comedy on there, but we play with a couple of his teammates, and they're all decent. They're not bad, but he's so competitive that he doesn't want to lose at anything. And like I said, it goes from sports to off the field, whatever the hell, cards, whatever the hell it may be. But at the end of the day, you have to take a little risk, and sometimes those risks are going to pay off. And I think that's kind of what the Niners fans have been waiting for, is we need somebody that's going to take that risk, that throw downfield that might pan out, but it might not, but at least we tried it, right? With Jimmy, we don't necessarily see the risks being taken. And so leadership, being able to work on the fly, and not just, and if you look at Jimmy work, he works under construction of, I think, Kyle Shanahan, right? And I think that's apparent now. There's not a lot of adjustments.
When people say system quarterback.
I would say that like, based off of how he plays, it's a system like quarterback.
All quarterbacks are a system. Joe Montana, system quarterback. Steve Young, system quarterback, right? Like we get that part. Tom Brady, system, we get it. But there are some guys that depend on it a little more. And Jimmy just happens to maybe depend on the schematic.
I think that he's very dependent on the first and second progression, and if it's not there, it's throw to the check down, or he's going to try and force a throw sometimes. And versus other guys that might see something, first or second's not there, now they're going to try and make a play with their feet, and I think that's where Trey comes in. They're going to try and make a play with their feet, and I'm not necessarily taking off down the field, but getting out of the pocket and letting things open up a little bit more. Something that you might have a backside guy running a post or an over route, and they're going to try and take a shot on it. You don't necessarily see Jimmy get out of the backfield a ton and use his legs to create some space and then make a throw from there. A lot of it is 1 to 2 on time. If it's not there, he'll either throw to the check down or he's going to force a ball. And so I think the elite guys, and you look at Russell Wilson, and people don't want to say Russell Wilson has played like crap lately, right? That's apparent. But if you watch Russell Wilson against the 49ers over the years, how many times did he make a play with his feet against against the D-line that we had, where he created some type of space, got out of the pocket, and threw some type of throw on the run or some type of off-platform throw, literally killed the 49ers year after year after year doing those things. Josh is doing those things. Patrick Mahomes is doing those things. Lamar can do those things. So the ability to make something happen when something is not there is the eliteness, I think, that everybody is searching for. And I think that's what you talk about when Jimmy is good enough to get you there, but when it's time for those plays to happen, that's where we're missing it, right? When it's time for him to make a play in the NFC Championship game, when shit hits the fan and something's in his face, how does he get out of the pocket and make some type of play on the move? We don't really see that a ton from him. He'll either take a sack or he'll force a ball that he shouldn't have forced, where let's just get out of the pocket. Buy yourself some time and make something happen with your feet that allows you to make a throw down the field. But the greatness thing, it's making adjustments on the fly, being a leader, gathering guys and getting everybody to buy in around you. It's not always just the play on the field, right? There's plenty of guys that are elite athletes at quarterback. From a throwing the ball perspective, Tom Brady, right? But not necessarily an elite athlete that runs this 4.5 40 and can take off down the field at any given time. So there's different ways to look at it, but making things happen when shit crumbles, I think is that really separates a lot of these elite guys from just your general pocket passer or your general systematic quarterback these days.
So if you don't mind, I have two questions for the both of you based on what you just mentioned, Greg. The first question is for both you and Croc, and it's about what goes into an NFL player's off season. And the reason I asked that question is because you talk about these things with Garoppolo. And one of the things I've noticed, I guess not necessarily, I feel like he's more or less been the same player for 5 years. And I don't know, my frame of reference is because I've never been involved in having an off season as a professional football player and having to go through that. I don't know what works. I've seen the example of Ben Roethlisberger and Aaron Rodgers, who don't pick up a football until they return to team activities, and they're two of the greatest throwers in the history of the NFL. But then you see people like Dak Prescott, who's a notorious grinder. Trey Lance, Kyle Shanahan always raves about Trey Lance's grinding. He never raves about that with Garoppolo. He always talks about Garoppolo's natural throwing. So you can see these types of things. And Jimmy Garoppolo's a ghost, so none of us knows what he does in the offseason, right? So I'm not here to pass judgment or make a statement on that. But the one thing I've seen quarterback improvement on the whole across the league because of the opportunities these guys get to throw the football is now, I mean, the improvement Jalen Hurts has made in the last 3 years was unheard of 10 years ago. For a quarterback to go from where he started to where he is now, I've never seen that. And so my question is, what should happen in an offseason? Why is it? Is it because something personal with Jimmy? For you guys as an athlete, what was your approach to the offseason? And then my second question building off of that is that Croc asked, what makes a quarterback great? When you're watching a quarterback, right, what is one thing that quarterback needs to have for you to say that's a quarterback? Is it charisma and how he carries himself? Does he have to be a natural thrower? Does he have to be a very good thrower? Does he have to be a mechanically sound thrower? When you guys go to the field and you interact with all these young athletes, what makes a quarterback stand out to you and say that guy has a chance to be something if you could put it down to one trait?
Can I go first, Greg? Just kind of my thoughts.
Yeah, go ahead. No, go ahead.
And hear yours. For me, I think traditionally we're always taught that playing the quarterback is supposed to look a certain way. And I definitely fall into that, right? I look at it. You remember Noah May, right, Greg? Noah May?
Yeah, I trained Noah.
Yeah, you trained Noah. So I have Noah back there at quarterback. And to me, it was Noah just looks like a quarterback, right? He's tall, the way he throws, it was nice release, all that stuff. It looked great. Ball came out of his hand. I mean, from the time he was in the 8th grade to, time he left goddamn St. Mary's High School, right? But it was just Noah looks like a quarterback. And I think in our heads, we've been conditioned that playing the quarterback position is supposed to look a very specific and certain way. And then if it doesn't, then there's something wrong with it, right? Or people are going to always keep kind of bringing up this certain aspect of the game. I think a lot since Noah, and there has been a lot that has changed around the NFL because, we're talking about 2016 when I first started coaching, maybe 2015, 16 when I first started coaching Noah, right? I'm on the team, I'm coaching him and whatnot. Since then, my thoughts on the quarterback position has drastically changed. And I look and I just say, I think guys just get it done differently. Can you figure out, one, how this guy can excel, and then different ways to kind of bring him up to speed to where he can be the best version of himself, whatever that looks like. So when I look at Lamar Jackson, I can look at Lamar and know Lamar he don't drop back and look like Noah May. Yeah, I know y'all know Noah May, but I'm just saying, what you traditionally think a quarterback is supposed to look like. But he's the most dangerous, or one of the most dangerous quarterbacks in the NFL. He can beat you from the pocket. He can beat you out the pocket. He can beat you on the ground. Whatever the case is, I'm scared when Lamar Jackson's on the field, right? Just because of all the different ways that he can win. And it looks different but I accept that different ability from him. And then you see other guys. And I tweeted this out, and I recently kind of brought this tweet back up. But Jalen Hurts, and we watched what I thought Jalen Hurts at Alabama was going to be a running back. I thought he was going to get drafted to be a running back. I didn't see a quarterback. I didn't see any of that, right? Then you see him get drafted, and you notice, you know what? Now, yeah, he has things he needs to clean up and whatnot, but he's doing well. I mean, he's a quarterback of the team. The first year starting, this is the guy that got benched for Nate Sudfeld. This guy that got benched for Nate Sudfeld in the game. Now, some people have their conspiracy theories. Hey, he got benched because they were tanking. No, they already sucked, and he was playing terrible in that game. It was some of the worst quarterback play I've ever seen. All right, so he was playing terrible. He got benched for Nate Sudfeld. All right, and then last year, he plays the entire year. I went to the game in Philadelphia. I watched him against the 49ers. There were some good throws, but it was kind of up and down. It wasn't great. Well, ultimately, got a good team around you, whatever. They go to the playoffs. They do get blown out. I think it was by Tampa, but a lot of people just wrote him off. Why did they write him off? Because he wasn't Noah May. He wasn't that traditional looking quarterback. So he can't get better. He can't improve. Jalen Hurts is going to be wherever he's been, right? Well, now we look, and it's like, is he the MVP of the league right now through the first quarter of the season? Jalen Hurts is playing amazing. And I think a lot of people, when it comes to this quarterback position, again, we've been conditioned that's supposed to look a very specific way. Whether it's Jalen Hurts, whether it's Patrick Mahomes, and people thinking about the air raid offense and what people missed when it was like, this motherfucker's the most talented quarterback in this class. Why? And it's like, well, it played out how some people thought it would. Clearly, with the Kansas City Chiefs, why wasn't he thought of as the number 2 overall pick? Well, it didn't look conventional, whatever they were seeing. And I think we have to get outside of that mindset. So, bring it full circle. You got Trey Lance or anybody else, and everybody focuses so much on what is this guy right now at this very moment. And I think with the 49ers, it is a little different because the expectations are so high. But I just look at it like, can the guy do the things that I need him to do the things I want him to do? Can he make all the throws? And if he can, how do you work to get him to be more consistent? And if you can be a little patient with the process of that, in turn, you can probably get the quarterback that you want. And I would say that right now, the Philadelphia Eagles are very happy with sticking with Jalen Hurts after last year, which was like he's heading in the right direction, but he's not Noah May right now, right? He's not Tom Brady.
Who is Noah May? Is he the greatest high school quarterback in the history?
It just looked like when you watch a kid, 8th grade, 9th grade, 10th grade, it's like, that's a quarterback. Like, 6'4",
it's a look.
good arm. Yeah, he just has that. And when you look at some of these other guys, they're like, well, they don't have that look. And I think that kind of turns some people off. Oh, man, he missed his throw. Oh, low completion percentage. And it's like, hold on. Again, I fall victim to that. I thought Jalen Hurts was a running back. He's one of the best quarterbacks in the league right now, at least through the first quarter of the season. So I know I kind of answered a little question, but you're talking about what we're looking for, and I don't know anymore. I just look for somebody that's really talented, and does he have the mental capacity to improve on his strength, his weaknesses and strengths, and get to what I need him to be. And if so, then he has a chance. That just takes time, and there are a lot of people that are very impatient.
Do you have any thoughts on the offseason part of it? Like what?
That's the biggest. That's the most important. Well, I'll let Greg. You go.
Yeah, everybody takes the offseason stuff different, right? There's guys that I've got guys that will train with me twice a week, every single week during the offseason, or 3 times a week, whatever it may be, and they might never have a shot. And it's not a shot at them, but they might never have a shot at getting a Division I scholarship, or they might never have a shot at getting to the NFL. They just want to be the best version of themselves, right? And then there's some that haven't even reached their ceiling, like a Jalen Hurts, where he was just a decent at best thrower, I thought, at Alabama, surrounded by really good athletes, and continued to work, and you see where his ceiling is at, and he just keeps on getting better and better and better. Josh has been a very good thrower his whole life. The arm talent has been there. He needed to clean up some things with his feet, clean up some things with his arm angle and shoulders, whatever it may be. But at the end of the day, Josh also isn't a guy that goes out to the field 6 times a week in the offseason and throws the ball. And like I've told Croc before, I've said it before, we probably play more golf. Like in 2020, we probably played more golf than we did train on the field, right? We train a couple times a week at most. and then go play some golf. And those guys were doing virtual meetings with their coaches and things like that. So it was a little bit different. But everybody takes the offseason approach. You look at Aaron Rodgers, right? Doesn't pick up a football really in the offseason, goes and plays golf, lives his life, shows up, and he gets an MVP.
Retreats.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah, exactly. So everybody does it a little bit different. But to Croc's point, Jimmy, let's take away the Joshes and the Mahomes of the world as of recent and put Jimmy into the quarterback situation 15, 20 years ago. Everybody would say, okay, that looks like a quarterback, right? That's how it's supposed to look. That is what the NFL quarterback guy looks like. Now, he doesn't necessarily throw the ball downfield as much as those guys or have the same arm talent, right? But that's kind of what it looks like. It looks clean coming out. He gets the ball out quickly. His feet are pretty decent. He just has that look to him. And now the game is changing to where, and I've said this before, I don't care who's playing quarterback for the 49ers, whether it's Trey Lance, whether it's Jimmy G. I don't care if it's freaking Kyler Murray. The goal is to win a Super Bowl, and whoever can get the job done, I'll take it. Whether it looks pretty, right? Whether the throwing mechanics are the sexiest or whether it's, they have that look to them, doesn't matter. The goal at the end of the day is to get the job done. And there's guys out there that I train that have gotten Division I scholarships that made it to very high level Division I schools. And then there's other guys that didn't necessarily get that chance because they're not the same size or they don't look as clean mechanically. One of those guys is in Croc knows is Nick Coronado. This quarterback that I trained last year led the state in passing, but he was 5'9", 165 pounds. But you want to talk about having that playmaking ability. He had a clutch gene that a lot of guys that didn't necessarily that looked cleaner than him or looked more like a quarterback didn't necessarily have. But at the end of the day, when there's 2 minutes left, you got to have a guy that that can get the job done and that you can rely on. And I think that's I don't know if it's going to happen this week, or is Jimmy going to do it this week? Is he going to do it next week, right? Is it going to be this 2-minute comeback like the other day, right? There's 2 minutes left in the game against the Broncos. I'm like, all right, this is kind of where Jimmy shows what he's got a little bit, and then we end up.
The same thing. Everybody says I'm wrong. But
I was thinking the same thing too. He threw the pick. Usually, right after the pick, he bounced back, and he started off that way too.
When he ends up, gets sacked, and then we drop the ball or we fumble the ball right after he makes the completion there. So I think the biggest thing is just having the ability to make things happen on the fly with quarterbacks. At the end of the game, when there's pressure, that's no matter what it looks like. But the offseason stuff, I think, is huge for some. Other guys don't necessarily need to do it as much as others. And some just don't want to do it as much as others. And then they show back up to camp. Usually it's the case, and Croc has seen this too. It's like, we got to get ready for the conditioning test, right? Back in college. And what do dudes do? They start running a week before the conditioning test to make sure that they're ready to go for the conditioning test. When you know damn well you're probably not going to be ready for the conditioning test by the time it comes. So some guys do that, some guys don't. It's just I think it's a case-by-case thing.
Real quick, 187 says, "Did we even talk about the Panthers yet? We do have we do play this weekend against another team. 49ers are 6.5 point favorites on the road, Carolina Panthers. Baker Mayfield has been the worst quarterback in the entire NFL. Their offense has been fairly efficient. 49ers have the best defense in the league. Can the 49ers corral that team and make them look worse than what they've even shown to be? They have had a couple close games where they lost by one score or like a field goal, but ultimately they're not playing great football, and that's why the 49ers are favored, and I think the 49ers will win. All right, so, but anyways, so we have Vlad here. He says, "I keep seeing the slander. What about Lance's great accuracy?" I think I'm reading a little. What's the word I'm looking for? Sarcasm. With that, his refusal to slide. This goes both ways. Majority of people admit Jimmy isn't special, but Lance's fans refuse to see he proved nothing. And I would say this. Okay, and this is just my perspective on it. I would say that it's not so much to refuse that he hasn't proved nothing. I would say that we've seen things that we like from him, but with a guy that has played such limited time, you take more of a wait and see approach. At least I do. If you were to tell me right now, the Trey Lance that we've seen through 4 games, and part of it's his fault, he's been injured, all right. But the Trey Lance, that is the only Trey Lance you've ever seen then I'd be like, that's not enough. That's not good enough. You got to figure something else out. Unfortunately, the way my mind works is, I think he's just getting started. Now, after a year or two, we will know more of what he is. And then those definite statements on him, like you get on Jimmy Garoppolo, will definitely be there. And I think that everybody will be right for saying whatever they, bad things or whatever they have to say about Trey Lance, if that's the case down the line. But we have seen years of Jimmy Garoppolo. So I think the slander, if that's how you take it, the slander for Jimmy is based on what we know over years, not 4 starts. So Trey Lance, again, refusing to slide, the accuracy, which I think the accuracy has actually kind of got better. But some of those things, we'll see.
It's the honeymoon period for him.
We'll be right here. And 2 years from now, if he hasn't improved on those things, then he will get slander as well. And I'll be like, they got to get somebody else in this motherfucker because he's not it.
And Croc will be talking about Caleb Williams.
Caleb? Nah, he's got the nasty swag, though.
It's the honeymoon period, right? I mean, I feel like Niners fans as a community defended Garoppolo to the ends of the earth in 2019 and 2018.
I defended Jimmy Garoppolo to all my friends, and you guys know that he's just getting started, and it turned out he kind of is what he is.
Oh yeah,
he is what he is.
Was Croc
it's cool.
a Jimmy sexual in 2019?
I think people think I'm a Jimmy sexual now.
I wouldn't know.
You are a Jimmy sexual now?
No, people call me that all the time.
Oh yeah.
Wait, what?
Okay, I'm just checking.
Yeah, they call me a Jimmy sexual.
It just depends on. I feel like it depends on the day.
It's because I don't think he's trash. I think it's like if you don't have like these crazy high expectations for Jimmy Garoppolo, which in turn you kind of talk about other things, not so much him, right? I'm Kyle Shanahan. You got Jimmy Garoppolo. Well, fucking Ben Johnson guy is scoring 40 points a game with Detroit Lions and Jared Goff. So Kyle, why can't you get more out of Jimmy Garoppolo? So because I kind of form it that way with all these weapons and all this stuff, it's you're defending Jimmy. Oh, you're a Jimmy sexual.
I think here's the biggest thing. I think that people, you look at Jimmy, right? You look at the quarterback situation that's going on in the NFL right now. There's not a ton of great quarterback play with the exception of maybe the top 5 guys, right? And those guys are pretty obvious. Top 3 pretty obvious, right? Current, how they're playing right now. Then you go to like this, this gap in it where it's, let's say 5 to 15. Okay. Then after 15,
5 to 10. I think.
Okay, 5 to 10.
1 to 4, and then 5 to 10, and then.
Right, and then there's this huge gap.
Like,
but you look at these guys that are right now, currently, that are supposed to be playing at a super high level, that continue to make these mistakes week after week. But on the flip side, and we've talked about this too, they do have these little abilities that enable them to maybe push the ball down the field or make this big time throw over the top that might be a risk, or those guys take a little bit more risks and sometimes it pays off, but then you see them throw an interception and sometimes it doesn't pay off. I think we're so caught in this. We don't necessarily take shots down the field. We don't take these high risks. Therefore, we don't turn the ball over. And I know people are going to hammer me with that, but it's not a lot of stupid throws happening. But people want to see sometimes the stupid throws just to see if it's going to pay off or not. When I'd rather have a quarterback we know he's probably not going to make a ton of dumb throws. He might be late. He might throw one high. But at the end of the day, it's not really a ton of dumb, risky throws. And it's not a high risk, high reward type of thing. It's very low risk, low reward unless you get some yak. And it's not fun to watch necessarily all the time, but it's the safe bet. And you watched last night, there was a couple of them, like Russell Wilson threw this ball deep over the top. He had separation. If he throws them more to the sideline, if he has separation. If he throws that ball more like a 2-ball layered hard with an arc towards the sideline, that's probably a completion, maybe a touchdown. Instead, he just chucks it.
Not Ayuk,
Judy, one of the two, right?
Okay.
It was the deep one over the top. And he tries to airmail it to him and lets the DB recover. He has the abilities to throw it deep, but it wasn't a completion. Now they're getting their asses booed off the field every other drive because They can't make these plays, and they're trying to push the ball down the field. Then you go to the touchdown, right? Or the what should have been a touchdown. The slants at the end of the game. Why Russell Wilson was looking to the left and not looking to the 3 receiver side on the front?
With the pick play?
Beyond me, right? It's beyond, not even the pick play. This the one that he was wide open at the end of the game where the slant was open first window.
He's done that. I feel like he's done that. That in the history of Russell Wilson, if you put him in a 3-by-1 formation and he has some sort of one-on-one on the backside, he's throwing the ball to the backside. He will not look at the concept side. I mean, how many times did we see DK Metcalf have big plays just because he was the isolated receiver on the backside of a 3-by-1 and they would just take alert go ball shots? Yeah. Right.
No, I agree with you. It's and those are the risky ones instead of playing it safe and working your typical progression or your triangle read or your zone read, whatever it may be. But again, he's made those plays in the past, and sometimes it pays off, sometimes it doesn't. So
I have a question. Do you think that because I like the discourse, I feel like what we're talking about here is like really nice because it's very even. So I feel like this question is suited for that. Do you think that because the discourse with Garoppolo is so nuclear, everything has to be he's this or he's this, he's not this or he's not this, he's this or this? Do you think some of the things that he does well, we've gotten very numb to? Because like I watch every game, even the Denver game and this, and I go back and watch and I see a couple of throws where I say, yeah, it was only a 10-yard throw, but that was a great throw, not just a good throw. Like he had a person around him, his feet wasn't set, but he was able to get it out with pace into a tight window, or he threw the ball over the middle with great anticipation. And I feel like, yes, I feel like we take it for granted because I guess everything looks the same, even though it's not the same. Like not every 10-yard completion over the middle of the field is the same. Yep. Do both of you feel like, and you mentioned it, right, because you talked about those quarterbacks 5 to 10 that maybe aren't playing well. To me, that was like a description of Matthew Stafford's play this year. Yeah, we see the high-level stuff. Stafford hasn't had a good season. And so do you think that we have become numb to, like, because Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes and Lamar Jackson do freakish things every Sunday, we have become numb to what is good quarterback play? Like good things quarterbacks do that look ordinary or aren't flashy or no longer something that we are able to appreciate as football fans. Do you think that's a case?
Right? Yeah, no, I do. And I told Crocker that there was a couple of throws that Jimmy has made the last couple of weeks that the receiver doesn't have a ton of separation, but he ends up throwing him open with some type of anticipation. And those are elite level throws that a lot of people overlook because it's not this 45-yard throw down the field. Yet the guy wasn't open, but he makes a good throw, or he throws it when the DB's back is turned and ends up throwing it on time right past the defender's head, and we get a completion. I think that so many times we're caught up in not saying that it's or saying that it's the same thing over and over, to your point, just because it looks very similar from the bird's eye view. But when you go down to the field or you look at the all 22, it's like, shit, that's a really good throw because this guy was here or this guy was here or he had pressure in his face or whatever it may be, where a lot of other quarterbacks might not take those type of risky throws, where a guy's not completely open. And I think that's the difference between the younger guys that are in the league and half of the young guys will take those risks. Sometimes they're picked, sometimes they're not. But you're looking at a guy like Trey Lance. I think when he first came into the league, you look at he's looking at guys waiting for them to pop open, right? Not having a complete comprehension of the offense or what the reads are yet. And you're waiting for guys to pop open. And then you start to see him progress from year 1 to year 2 and start to throw guys open, right? And that's the difference, is throwing guys open versus throwing them when they're wide ass open. And Jimmy does a good job, I think, sometimes of throwing guys open. And I think it's overlooked just because the result isn't a 45 or 50-yard gain or whatever it may be.
Yeah, I think a kind of a good way to sum that up is everything looks a little difficult with Jimmy. In an offense that's supposed to look so easy and guys running wide open, it feels like everything is so condensed and tight window throws. And when he does it, it's like, man, that was a great throw. But I remember Chris Sims talking about it last year after Trey Lance's start against the Texans, and he was like, man, like it almost feels like you're living life on the edge with every throw. Where it's like, man, it's like when it's good, but gosh, if Jimmy's off a little bit, it's a tipped overthrow interception, and he gives himself a small room for error, I guess, because of the area where he excels. And again, that is where Jimmy excels. Jimmy excels in that area, but it's just a tough area to live because it can kind of go haywire real quick.
Yeah, because if it's not on time, then it's if it's not on time, 1, 2, 3, boom, foot's in the ground. If it's not there, he doesn't necessarily get out of the pocket. He won't make that play with his feet. So that's living on the edge because he's still going to throw the ball, whether it's sometimes forced or not, versus a guy like Lance or Josh or Mahomes or whatever it may be, where they might bust out of there and try and make something happen on the run.
I want to ask you this question, and man, you guys have been way more. I mean, I thought we were going to be on here for an hour, to be honest. I thought we were going to be out here at noon, but it's been a good conversation. Mahomes alone at 1. Do you agree?
No.
All right, we'll leave it at that, man. Shout out to Greg Pinelli. Shout out to Vish Kamuran. I appreciate all y'all in here right now. Hit the like button. Oops, I didn't mean to remove you. My bad. Hit the like button. Hit the subscribe button. Vish, if y'all don't know, Vish has a twin. Vish, is your sister your twin?
No, she's 2 years older than me.
Oh, okay. You guys look like exactly alike. She's like a cute version.
You were the only one that said that. That's funny because we never have gotten that growing up because I look just like my mom and she looks like my dad. But we've been getting that, I guess.
I was drinking a lot, but I saw the same person, but one with a wig on, and it happened to be your sister. So I don't know. But anyways, appreciate everybody that tuned into the show. Love the conversation, all that good stuff. We'll see, man. I think I'm pretty open this weekend. Maybe we'll go live tomorrow and talk more about the actual game because I feel like we've been talking about a lot of stuff outside
what do you really
of that.
have to mention about the actual game, though?
I know. It's just like we're going to wait and see. And here's the thing, too, because I heard somebody, we're going to talk about it. Everybody talks about, like, they talk about all this other stuff. Let's have some type of different kind of conversation and bring maybe potentially a different perspective. And I think Vish came in here. He has I love the questions and I love the insight that you brought. Obviously, Greg, the viewpoints of playing the quarterback position. I thought they were good questions from the chat. And I think that's good stuff right there. Has your buddy worked with Trey Lance? Talking about you, Greg. If not, would he want to? And what would be the first thing he would work on? Okay, this is a great question. So we will end on this unless we get another super chat. But Greg, I'm gonna give you the floor to answer that.
No, I hope I do at some point or another, and that's something I was going to talk to Quincy about as far as working with Trey or doing some stuff with him in the offseason when Quincy might not come out here or whatever it may be. But I'd love to work with Trey. I think that obviously he shows a lot of good things. The first thing I'd tell him is to don't look at Twitter because the 49er fans are batshit crazy when it comes to quarterback play, and they want you to be Joe Montana. But besides that, no, I'm just kidding.
You're not kidding.
And to an extent, yeah. Crocker's gonna roast you if you do something wrong, so don't pay attention to Crocker. No, I'm joking. All jokes aside, I think that Quincy had mentioned it, trying to get Trey to speed up the backside a little bit, and what I mean by that is the arm and the hips firing a little bit quicker, getting his front foot on the ground a little bit quicker, and making it a little bit more fluid. Again, you draft a guy and you bring quarterbacks in because you liked what they did in college, because you like the way that they throw, because you like the way that they move, whatever it may be. You would be crazy, especially with the equity given up, to bring a guy in and expect to completely change this kid around to something that you want to shape him into when that's not how he's played his whole life. That's not how he's thrown his whole life. I think that so many people get caught up on he needs to change his mechanics, he needs to do this and that. If I sat down and put these guys on, put all the dots on them on like the biomechanics machine and said, this guy has to have, this is what the certain mechanics are supposed to look like and everybody has to throw the same. If you did that, again, Jimmy, from that perspective, would be in the very elite category. His mechanics are clean. He gets his foot on the ground quick. The ball's out, right? Very Tom Brady-esque, Drew Brady-esque, right? It looks a certain way. Now that guys have changed, you couldn't do that. Trey, Pat, Josh, Lamar, all these guys would probably fall on the lower end of that, or on the lower end of the data there on certain things on how it's supposed to look. So I think taking the things that Trey does well and building on those things. Obviously, he has elite arm talent, but let's try and let's try and speed up the quick game, especially in the Niners offense where that ball has to be out a little bit quicker. Let's try and get the foot on the ground a little bit quicker. Let's try and speed up the backside with an arm and work those quick game throws. Where Jimmy does those things well. Trey does a lot of other things well, but I think just building on this, that's what makes these guys great. And people got to understand is Trey would probably eat those things up, right? As far as working on the little things. That's the difference between the very, very elite and just your typical quarterback that's playing at a Division I college. Those guys tend to do the little things just a little bit better than everybody else, right? And that's the difference with everybody in life. Like if you want to make a lot of money the right way, you tend to wake up a little bit earlier than everybody else. You tend to stay a little bit longer. You answer those phone calls when you don't necessarily want to, right? The NFL guys, they don't want to always have to put a ball in their hands. We know they can throw a spiral. Let's take the ball out of their hand. Let's work on the little things without the football and then try and build up some muscle memory. But it's trying to get 1% better every single time in the offseason and then into the season trying to continue those things. And that's where it's the hardest to continue because that's when some of those older habits or bad habits might come in. But I think just trying to speed up the backside for Trey, trying to get him to get the ball out of his hands quicker. And I think that starts with that front step. And I think the arm would tie into those things. But again,
real quick, because I've been wanting to ask this question, but you've mentioned it a few times now, and maybe people don't know what you're talking about. You keep saying get the front foot down, and then how that works with the quickening the hands. Can you explain that for
So when typically the arm, like the throwing arm and the front foot are kind of tied in together, right? At some point when your front foot hits the ground, the arm is going to be in a certain slot. Okay. And then the hip would fire first from there. It's like hitting a baseball. The hip would fire, the arm chases. So the longer your stride is typically, because of a timing perspective within your body, the longer the front foot takes to hit the ground, typically the longer the arm is on the backside, right? But if you get the front foot in the ground quicker, the timing on the backside is either going to lag and you're going to be way off, or your body's going to force yourself to then accelerate quicker, or you're going to force your arm to accelerate quicker to get the ball out. So it's all biomechanics and timing and dissociation and all these different terms that you can use, but it's trying to
Oh, sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, you're good.
That was really good. But just speaking of this, just because I tried to get into learning this stuff, by the way, just it's a rabbit hole that I found way too complicated to go down, especially because I don't throw, so I don't know how my body sequences, and then everybody's body sequences differently. So it just didn't work for me. But I noticed this year specifically, and I've noticed Aaron Rodgers has done this in the past, and you work with him, so I just wanted to ask while I have this opportunity. Josh Allen is doing that weird thing. You talked about the front foot having to be in the ground where he's kind of lifting his...
Yeah, talking about the pop step.
Yeah, and Aaron Rodgers did the same thing. What is that? How does that help him throw, and how does that compare with what you're talking about?
And I saw him doing it the other day in his warm-ups, and people are like, oh, he's doing the same thing Aaron Rodgers was doing. A lot of guys will work on the pop step. Typically, you use a pop step like that to shut down the front side. So if your front side flies open, right, by that time my arm's either lagging or the timing is going to be off with my wrist. So you want to try and keep the front side a little bit more firm. That's why you'll see guys throw and they're here when they do throw, because now you have your shoulders pointed towards the target, right? The front side's not flying open. So they'll use a pop step in some type of movement, whether it be a drop and pushing up in the pocket or getting out to the left. And basically they'll throw, and because so much momentum is bringing him in that certain direction, they'll shut down, or they'll pop, and that pop into the ground will shut down the front side here. So they get to this point in that front shoulder will essentially stop, right? And they're trying to create some type of momentum to basically sudden start, sudden stop. And if they didn't pop step, then they're probably falling off balance. Then their shoulders are going to end up flying open. Their front side ends up flying open. So it's just a way for them to kind of get that momentum, whatever which way, whether it's forward to the left, and you don't usually use it to the right. Obviously, you would just throw it on the run, but it's to shut down the body for that split second to create that sudden start, sudden stop, or that deceleration effect, which then turns into acceleration with the arm. So that's kind of why they use it. A lot of people are over analyzing it, I guess, but I teach that to, 13, 14, 15-year-old kids all the way to the college and the NFL guys. But it's just a mechanism to get acceleration and then immediate deceleration while the arm keeps on moving. It's like a catapult, right? What happens with a catapult? Catapult goes, and then at some point or another it stops. And then what happens? There's a lot of whip created. Or I talk about it with a towel, right? What happens when you everybody in the house back in the day at some point or another has grabbed the towel and whipped your brother's ass with it, or your sister, whatever the hell it may be, your parents, you're slapping cabinets with it just to make that pop noise. Well, what happens? Accelerate, immediate deceleration, and then what happens with the towel? It ends up creating a lot of force, a lot of power. So it's very similar with the front side there.
Last question, I promise. Last question. As it pertains to getting with a quarterback trainer, because a lot of people just got to work with Jordan Palmer, right? What are your thoughts on some of the quarterback talk that's going on around the league? Because it's crazy, because listening to Quincy Avery was on this channel, and he was talking about quickening up that first step with Trey Lance and then that'll quicken the arm. And I'm like, man, that's crazy, because that's the same thing Greg's been talking about and what he would improve on. And so it sounds like, for the most part, as far as quarterback trainers go, do certain guys have some very similar philosophies on improving a quarterback's mechanics, or do you think that Jordan Palmer is doing something so much different than everyone else?
No, I think that he has done a good job, especially with the playbook stuff, right? He can talk the talk because he's been in an NFL huddle. But from a mechanic standpoint, I think a lot of guys are pretty similar. Nothing is this crazy out of this world.
When you say a lot of guys, we're talking about the guys that are really good, not your local quarterback, not local quarterback coach, but not your high school quarterback, like, he played high school quarterback and hasn't worked on mechanics or done the deep study. Like, you're talking about like the guys.
Guys that are coming out of college, guys that are draft prep dudes, whatever it may be, to get them ready from a mental standpoint. But from a mechanical standpoint, I think you would see a lot of guys that are very similar in teaching, because it's supposed to be a certain way in biomechanics. It's public, right? Like, Tom House has been the guru from biomechanics, from 3D QB, and he's worked with, and he still works with a ton of MLB pitchers. But he's found that rotational athletes as a whole are very, very similar, from hitting to pitching to throwing a football to boxing, whatever it may be. The lower half fires first, typically. Like, if you're a right-handed person, your right hip would fire first, your arm's going to chase. At some point or another, something has to stop, and acceleration has to keep going with the arm to create power, right? But I think from who's going to decide, I'm going to work with this quarterback coach or this quarterback coach, I think it's one, marketing, right? Followers, guys that you've worked with in the past, availability. But I think just the overall relationship. Hey, I really like this guy. I really like the way that Quincy does things, so I want to work with Quincy. Or I really like the way that, so-and-so does things, so I'm going to stick with him. Or I worked with him in high school and I met him at the Elite 11, so I'm going to stick with this guy. I don't think it's necessary. And sometimes it is agents too, or coaches, right? Like, we know that Trey has done things with Quincy in the past. Shanahan and Scangarello know the 3D QB guys, John Beck, right? So they wanted to send Trey over to John Beck this offseason. And some NFL coaches are like that, and some aren't. So it just depends on a few different things. But typically I'd say it's the relationship overall and the work that they get done and the guys that are around them. And obviously location as well. It's hard to pass up an opportunity to go spend your off season in Orange County. I get that. So I think there's a lot of different things that play into it, but very similar things are being taught throughout from a mechanical standpoint.
Awesome stuff there, man. So that's going to do it for this episode of the morning show, which is now, it's like the afternoon now. I appreciate everybody coming on. Thank you, Greg Pinelli. Thank you, Vish.
Yep.
Thank you, everybody that's in the chat right now that hit the like button and the subscribe button. But that's going to do it for this episode. And I will see everybody Monday. Are we going to do Monday or maybe tomorrow? I don't know. I got some time. I don't know. We'll see. But I'm out. Peace.
Intercepted. It is picked off
Cross Talk TV podcast. Peace.